lying beside you, here in the dark, feeling your heart with mine. Softly you whisper, you're so sincere. How could our love be so blind?
It's night out. Late spring, the sun is set, the breeze cool but not cold. James closes his eyes for a minute, breathes in, letting the night fill his lungs, stars just starting to wink themselves into view.
What about that one?
He's on his back in the Quidditch stands, pointing up at the sky.
Which one?
The group there, to the left of the moon.
Oh, to the left of the moon. Well, that clears it right up.
Those ones there, you prat. The group that looks like a turtle.
That laugh makes something warm pool in James's stomach. He turns his head to look at the other boy who's also lying on his back.
I don't know what's so funny. It does look like a turtle.
James's words ghost over Regulus's neck. He grins as he sees the other boy shiver, eyes fluttering closed.
I promise you it doesn't.
James likes the sound of his breathless voice so much that he leans forward and plants a kiss just behind his ear, staying there for a few seconds before pulling back to look at the sky again.
Oh, it totally does. Look, right there. That's the shell, and there's the neck and the head.
Oh, fuck. Ophiuchus. You think Ophiuchus is a turtle? You really are an uncultured heathen, aren't you?
Sorry I wasn't named after a bloody constellation.
Regulus isn't a constellation. It's a star, thank you very much.
If anything, that's more embarrassing.
You know, I don't know where you get off mocking my name when you're the one named after the gay king. Bit on the nose, don't you think? Overkill, even.
Wait, really?
You don't know astronomy or history? Tell me, why do people think you're so smart again?
Was there really a gay king? Of England?
James I of England and the 6th of Scotland had a string of young, very pretty male lovers.
No shit.
Eloquent as always, James.
Please, call me your majesty.
I definitely am not going to do that.
Ah, come on, Reg.
He tickles Regulus's side.
Don't! James!
Come here, pretty male lover.
He pulls a squirming Regulus on top of him, Regulus pitching forward, hands landing on either side of James's face. The eyes meet and hold. The world's no bigger than this. This moment between them. This breath. This look. James reaches his hand up, fingers running through Regulus's hair, swooping down to cup his face.
Will you bow to me, Regulus?
Regulus turns and kisses the inside of his palm.
I could, but I'd rather get on my knees for you.
Regulus is smiling as he drops his head and brings their mouths together. So much in James's life is a mess right now, but this has felt so right recently. This has been all good days. And James is grateful because he's not sure how he'd be managing without it. Regulus trails kisses across his jaw, his throat, James's hands sliding up his shirt.
Fuck, your hands are cold.
Need you to warm them up.
You're terrible at this.
Please.
Regulus pulls back, hovering above James, knees on either side of James's hips.
I'm endearing.
You're something, all right.
So much teasing, not enough kissing.
James sits up so that Regulus is essentially in his lap. James's hand goes to the back of Regulus's head and brings them together again. James is still surprised by how warm Regulus is, how soft. He goes pliant in James's arms, leaning into the kisses, making small happy noises when James bites his lower lip.
We're going to have to stop.
Regulus's forehead is pressed against James's.
Or I won't be able to concentrate tomorrow.
James's gut twists at the mention of tomorrow, but he tries to push those feelings aside.
Ah, you've discovered my brilliant strategy.
James's fingers are playing with the hair at the nape of Regulus's neck.
Brilliant strategy.
Distract the other team's seeker with memories of my sexual prowess. Oh sure, you laugh now. But have you ever tried flying a broom with a hard-on? Bloody difficult.
James, please, stop. I can't breathe.
Can you imagine the commentary? This is shaping up to be an especially hard game today, folks, specifically for the Slytherin Seeker. Wonder who he'll be slithering into later.
You're a child.
Oh my god, can you imagine McGonagall's face? I bet she'd shut the whole bloody game down. Give you detention for violating the sanctity of Quidditch or something.
Could there be a better boner killer than McGonagall's face?
Oi! I'll not have you slandering Minnie in front of me.
Oh my god. Have you had fantasies about Professor McGonagall?
Personally, no. Professors are not my thing.
No. No, he never. Tell me he hasn't.
Listen, it's not my place to judge what your brother does or doesn't fantasize about.
No. No. No! Oh, by Salazar's slimy slithering shits!
What?
I can't believe he did that! I can't believe he told you!
Hey, what's said in our dorm stays in our dorm.
Those words do something annoying to the pit of his stomach. It's only a joke, but there was a time when he would have meant it. He doesn't know what the dorm is now, but he certainly wouldn't call it safe.
Well, your strategy has been neutralised now, because there's no way I'm getting a boner for the rest of my life with that image in my head.
Shame that. Guess we'll just have to win the old-fashioned way.
Regulus blinks, cheeks flushed from James's mouth. James has learned that necks are a particular weakness of Regis. Breathing, touching, kissing. It all brings that slightly glazed look to his eyes.
Old-fashioned way.
Bribery and blackmail.
Very Slytherin of you.
Desperate times.
But tomorrow is the final Quidditch match of the season. Gryffindor versus Slytherin. And James can't fly. Well, he can fly. Technically. He can get on his broom and get into the air, but then it's just because Sirius isn't there. And it shouldn't matter. The second string beater is perfectly adequate, but James and Sirius have always been on the team together. Since they were 12. And now flying without him feels like flying without his bloody right arm.
Hey, fuck him. Okay? You're going to be brilliant.
Not if I play anything like I have been. It's just... This is supposed to be my thing, you know. I'm supposed to be good at this.
You are good. It's honestly annoying how good you are.
Apparently not on my own.
You're not on your own. You have a whole team behind you.
I know. It doesn't feel like it. It's like there's no one out there who can read me anymore, who has faith in me. I know it doesn't actually make a difference. He was a beater. It's not like I relied on him to pass me the quaffle. But it just made me a better player, knowing I was out there with someone who believed in me 100%. No matter what stunt I pulled.
You can't rely on other people to believe in you.
I know.
Don't think, when you're up there, about faces or names.
James can hear the competitiveness in Regulus's voice, the same way he sees it in his body when he plays. The need to win.
They're just players. Pieces on a chessboard. That's it. Focus on the game.
Yes, sir.
James considers saluting but decides against it. Regulus still rolls his eyes.
I'm just saying. It doesn't have to be personal.
It doesn't have to be personal. The Regulus Black motto.
Okay, if you're just going to mock me, I'm not going to bother trying to help you.
You help me. You always help.
He kisses him, softly, slowly. All kissing is not the same. That's something he's learned with Regulus, having never kissed anyone else enough to understand the differences. It's one of his favourite pastimes, figuring out all the different ways to open the other boy's mouth, all the different ways to taste him.
You are good, James. I mean that.
Better than you.
You wish.
The Slytherin boy quickly brings their mouths back together.
So loud.
He pushes James onto his back again. The older boy pulls at his lower lip.
Guess you'll just have to shut me up then.
open arms.
Turns out James is not at all good. In fact, he is very, very bad. Playing what may be the worst game of his entire life. And if the pinched look on Frank's face is anything to go by, he thinks so too.
Okay,
Frank runs a hand over his sweaty face. The game is running long, so Hooch called for a break, which is why the Gryffindor team is currently gathered in the locker room, looking ragged and hopeless.
listen, I know things aren't good, but the game isn't over yet, alright?
Mary leans up against the lockers, arms crossed over her chest. Frank sends her a sharp look, but honestly, James doesn't blame her. The snitch hasn't been caught, but Slytherin is currently leading 140 to 80. All 8 goals scored by Mary, of course, because for some reason James can't seem to keep his hands on the fucking ball.
Beers, I need you to be more aggressive, take more shots. Nothing illegal. But the chasers are getting too comfortable out there. McDonald, good job on those goals, keep it up. Marlene,
I know, I swear I'm looking. Marlene is sitting with her elbows on her knees, head in her hands, sweat bleeding through her uniform. Frank just nods.
sometimes it's like that. Keep your eyes peeled, stick close to Black. He moves, you move.
Yeah, 'cause that worked so well for Morrow.
You got anything helpful to add, McDonald?
Yeah, actually. Why doesn't James help me the fuck out there?
James grimaces, hand tightening around his broom handle.
Back off, Mary.
Alice's hand goes to James's arm, giving it a squeeze. James has no idea what Frank has told her about Sirius, but he's grateful for the two of them either way.
I'm just saying.
This is a team sport. The fate of the game isn't up to one of us. If we're doing poorly, that's on everyone in this room.
Oh, come on. There's clearly one person who is monumentally fucking up more than the rest of us.
Merlin, Mary, shut up!
Oi! Don't talk to her like that!
Then tell her to stop being such a cow!
Mary pushes off the lockers and steps forward.
You know what, Alice? Just because you're screwing the captain doesn't mean you get to do whatever you want.
All right, that's enough.
Neither of the girls are paying any attention to Frank. Alice smiles in a way that is not remotely pleasant.
Oh, you really don't want to go there.
Alice tries to step forward too, but James grabs hold of her arm and pulls her back.
Leave it, Alice.
Alice looks at him, face flushed with indignation. Honestly, he's not sure which of them is scarier, Mary or Alice, but he's pretty sure he couldn't take either of them in a fight.
Look, James, I'm not trying to be a bitch, but come on. I'm right, no? You're playing like garbage. I just don't see what good it's doing us to act like you aren't.
Merlin, Mary.
What? Did I miss something? Potter's a big boy, he can take it.
Alice is still pulling against James's grip, ready to fight.
McDonald?
You're right. I am playing like shite.
Thank you. So stop fumbling the quaffle and just pass it to me every time you get it, okay?
James finds himself surprisingly appreciative of Mary's no bullshit attitude.
You got it, McDonald.
Great. Now maybe we can close that fucking gap. Everyone okay with that?
Fine. But James, you get a shot, you take it, okay? Don't second guess yourself.
Frank is hoping that he'll wake up, that he'll suddenly be able to fly like there isn't a chunk of him missing out there. Hell, he's been hoping the same thing, trying to do what Regulus told him, to think of them as faceless players, pieces on a board, to not look for Sirius. But he just can't quite manage it.
Sure, Frank.
Frank looks back at them, eyes running over each of their haggard, sweaty faces.
We are a bloody good team, whatever happens out there. And I'm proud of each and every one of you.
James feels his chest grow tight. This is Frank's last chance to win the cup, and he's fucking it up.
You got it, Daddy Frank.
Marlene stretches, getting back on her feet. As they start down the tunnel back towards the field, James realizes that, for the first time, maybe in his entire life, he doesn't want to get on his broom. The second half of the game is not going any better. James's passes are sloppy, his aim off, and he keeps flinching every time he sees a goddamn bludger. Luckily, the rest of his team is doing a bit less shit. Slytherin hasn't scored any more goals, and Mary has managed to get in 2. At least if they lose now, it'll be respectable. Which is not a thought James has ever had during a Quidditch match before. Usually he's more of a fight to the bitter end kind of guy. But everything feels wrong this game. The team, him, nothing is meshing well, and he just wants to go back to his room and wash the whole thing out of his skin. Mary makes an unsuccessful attempt on the Slytherin goal, and the keeper chucks the quaffle well across the pitch, overshooting his mark so that there's no one on the receiving end. Normally James would revel in this, an easy steal. But the way this game is going, the Slytherins will have it out of his hands in no time. Still, he has to try, doesn't he? He's almost got it when another set of hands come out of nowhere, snatching the quaffle before he can reach it.
What the heck is going on here? The Slytherin Seeker has just taken possession of the quaffle.
James feels just as stunned as everyone else, staring at the dark-haired boy hovering on the broom in front of him.
Regulus.
You're throwing a temper tantrum.
What?
You're mad that he's not here, so you're throwing a temper tantrum. Stop it. You're better than this.
I am not.
Just because it isn't how you pictured it, doesn't mean it's broken. I'm tired of watching you give up.
Regulus's eyes scan the sky behind James, watching as the other players get closer.
What the hell, Black?
That's one of the Slytherins. Zabini, maybe?
Stop harassing my chaser.
This is highly irregular foresight, quite honestly. What's going on? Weird strategies going on.
Regulus's eyes stop moving for a moment, locking on James.
I believe in you.
What?
You said you missed having someone out here who believes in you, who has faith in you. I have faith in you.
And then Regulus is gone, flying past James and sending the quaffle careening over his head towards one of the Slytherin chasers. James blinks, trying to get his bearings.
I have faith in you.
Those words bounce around his head. Those words set fires in his chest. And then, slowly, James feels himself smile.
Potter, get your head in the fucking game!
And he does. The rest of the game is brilliant. Hard flying, fast game plays. James is out of breath and beaming by the time it's done. Gryffindor is leading 200 to 160 when Regulus catches the snitch. It's work for James to hide his smile at the sight. Reg, with the golden ball held over his head, he stands going wild. They've lost, and it sucks. Really. But fuck, it feels like the first time he's really been able to fly in weeks.
I'm sorry, Frank.
Marlene isn't even off her broom yet. The team landing on the field, all sweating and red-faced. It was a long game, and the sun is starting to dip below the horizon, evening rolling in. Frank shakes his head.
Don't be. You play beautifully, you all do.
A few of the Slytherins are running onto the field along with Madam Hooch and Professor Slughorn. Green and silver scarves are thrown onto the pitch.
What the fuck did Black say to you, and do I need to fight him?
Nah, it was nothing.
James almost feels guilty about dismissing Reg like that. Dismissing what he did.
I have faith in you.
He stopped a whole bloody Quidditch match in front of the entire school for James.
I knew all you needed was a little antagonism.
Mary winks at him as she walks towards the locker room.
You trying to say that takedown at halftime was all for my benefit?
She turns around to face him, walking backwards.
Anything for you, James, baby?
But there's something not quite right. Cold and sharp. It takes James by surprise. Before he can answer, Alice beats him to it.
You're lucky you didn't get socked in the face, McDonald.
As if you dare, Pruitt.
Bad idea to bet against me. Just ask Marlene.
She's right. Ma!
What? It is.
James smiles at the three girls, hanging back so that he can walk with Frank.
All right, Potter?
Frank drags his feet like he's reluctant to leave the pitch. James nods as they slowly come to a stop near the edge of the field, Frank looking out at it all with a wistful expression on his face. James watches for a moment, foot kicking nervously at the ground.
Listen, I reckon I owe you an apology.
Frank looks over at him, eyebrow raised.
I let you down out there.
There's a pause, in which James feels Frank's eyes on him but can't quite bring himself to meet them.
You know, 2 years ago, hell, last year, if Mary'd said the thing she said to you today, you've lost it on her. There'd have been a bloody duel in my locker room, but the way you handle yourself today... You've always been a good player, James. No doubt about it. but I was never convinced you could actually lead the team. Not until today.
James blinks, brain suddenly going a mile a minute.
Wait, are you making me captain?
You didn't hear it from me. So do try to look surprised when the badge comes in the mail, yeah?
James nearly chokes on all the words that are trying to force their way out of his mouth.
Thank you.
You don't need to thank me. You earned it. I'm excited to come back next year and see what we do with them. You've got a good core here, and it'll be nice to get some fresh blood on the field.
James only nods, still feeling a little stunned. For some reason, he'd always assumed that the captaincy would go to Marlene, her being the most patient and reasonable of the lot of them. Beside him, Frank takes in a deep breath, eyes scanning over the field one last time.
I got into the Aura program.
James feels something tug on his gut.
So it's official then. No more Quidditch.
It's official.
It shouldn't bother James as much as it does. The Auras is the right choice, the noble choice, but he can't shake the feeling that it's unfair.
Alice too.
Yeah.
Be careful, yeah?
His chest squeezes. Auras always feel so big and scary and untouchable, like you could throw them into anything and they would survive. Not like Frank and Alice. They're just kids. Just his friends. Frank drags his eyes away from the pitch and back to James.
You too.
There's more to say. There almost always is. But James has no idea what. And before he can figure it out...
Potter! Here! Now!
James squints in Madame Hooch's direction. There are still scattered groups of revelling Slytherins on the pitch, though the stadium has sufficiently emptied. Only 1 or 2 stragglers left in the stands.
She sounds pissed.
Yeah.
James grimaces.
Think she's figured out I've been stealing snitches all year.
Merlin help you if she has.
Frank pats James on the shoulder as he turns down the hallway behind them and starts making his way inside. That, James thinks, is wholly unhelpful. Walking towards Madame Hooch, he realises that he's not the only one who's been summoned. A spike of anxiety cuts through him that has nothing to do with stolen snitches as he stops awkwardly across from Regulus.
Mr. Black has something to say to you.
Hooch crosses her arms over her chest, eyes bouncing between the 2 boys, her gaze particularly harsh when it falls on Regulus.
Okay.
James shifts his weight between his feet, feeling thoroughly uncomfortable. He can't quite look at Regulus, not this close, not with Madame Hooch watching them.
I'm sorry for my unsportsmanlike behaviour.
James blinks.
What?
Your sincerity is truly inspiring, Mr. Black. I'll be taking 50 points from Slytherin. I've never seen such vicious behaviour on my pitch, and I won't tolerate it again. Understood?
No, wait, Madame Hooch.
I honestly was only making an observation. It's hardly my fault he was playing like a drunken baboon.
A drunken baboon?
James arches his brow at Regulus, but the younger boy's face is made of stone.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Black. Next time I'll disqualify you.
Yes, Mom.
Hooch gives him one last look over before turning to James, hand clapping his shoulder, she walks off.
Excellent turnaround in the second half, Potter. Really brilliant flying.
Thanks.
He watches her walk away, brow knitting in confusion.
Regulus, why?
Supply room. Past the locker rooms, on the left.
And then Regulus turns on his heel, heading back towards his remaining teammates, leaving James feeling as though he's just been hit with a stunning spell. He watches Regulus's back for a moment before following what he's assuming are instructions. Frank is no longer at the entrance of the stadium. The hallway clears. James makes his way down the hall, finding the supply room on the left, just like Regulus said. He doesn't have his wand on him, so the only light is from the small, high window on the far wall, illuminating rows of well-used brooms and mismatched Quidditch gear. The ceiling and floor are grey, the room smelling very distinctly of sweat and leather. James runs a hand through his damp hair, wondering exactly what he's meant to be doing, when the door opens behind him. He turns around and finds Regulus slipping through.
Hey.
When Regulus doesn't speak, the 2 of them stand awkwardly in front of one another. Regulus nods. He looks tense, and the fact that James has no idea why is wigging him out a little.
You can't tell people what I said to you during the game. You realise that, right?
James blinks. Oh. Of course. This is a PR meeting.
So what do I tell them?
Regulus waves his hand in the air, dismissively, and for some reason that irks James.
That I was taunting you. The specifics aren't important, though it's probably best if you choose one story and stick to it.
You want me to tell everyone that you were being an arsehole?
James frowns, unsure why it bothers him so much.
I don't want to do that.
You have to. It was a dumb thing for me to do in the first place. I wasn't...
Regulus shakes his head, looking off to the side for a moment before his gaze returns to James.
Look, it's what everyone will think anyway, so just go along with it, okay?
James thinks about Alice and knows that Regulus is right.
Well, they shouldn't. The way that Hooch was treating you out there, that wasn't fair. You don't have to be the bad guy. I don't want people to think.
And what's the alternative?
Neither of them have stepped any closer, the space between them poking holes in James's lungs.
Huh? Because people are going to ask, and if you tell them the truth, then they'll know that we're...
Regulus cuts himself off. They've said they love each other, but they haven't said much else. Like what they are, what they're doing, what it means.
Would that be so bad?
He sees Regulus's eyes widen, but not with shock, with anger.
Are you joking right now?
No.
Regulus stares at him for a minute, a look of complete disbelief washing over his face.
You're being ridiculous.
I don't think so.
James takes a step forward and Regulus instantly steps back, causing them both to freeze. James does his best to ignore the tightening in his chest.
What are you so afraid of, Reg?
For a second, the expressionless mask cracks and something so much more powerful than anger or irritation slips through. And then it's gone.
You have no idea. I can't be... And anyway, it doesn't matter. I told you. I told you before this started.
This? What's this, Reg? What are we doing? Huh? What am I to you exactly?
He can see Regulus's chest rising and falling, like he's still playing the game, still trying to outmaneuver an opponent.
Don't start, James. I told you that this had to be secret. You agreed.
I'm not the one who flew up to you in the middle of a Quidditch match.
Regulus pinches the bridge of his nose.
All I'm asking is that you confirm their biases.
And I'm just telling you that I don't want to go around bashing you to everyone.
Oh, get over yourself. It's not as though you've never done it before. I'm sure my brother has given you plenty of opportunities to practice.
Now it's James's turn to take a step back, that attack taking him by surprise, in no small part because it's true.
James, please. I'm asking you. I made a mistake, a miscalculation. I wasn't thinking. I need you to do this for me.
It's not fair, really. Not with the desperation in his voice, his words. He needs him. And really, that's all James has ever wanted. To be needed.
Okay, fine. If that's what you want.
It's what I want. I should go.
His grey eyes are somewhere distant. Someone not on James.
Reg.
Regulus stops him with his hand on the door. The younger boy looks back over his shoulder but doesn't turn around.
It meant something to me, what you did out there. So just don't call it a mistake, okay?
Something uncomfortable and heavy grows in James's chest as he waits for an answer, enduring a silence that stretches on too long. Eventually Regulus nods.
Okay.
He turns back to the door but doesn't open it, hand still tightly gripping the handle. After several seconds his shoulders drop like he's giving up, losing the fight. When he turns back around his eyes are softer than before.
Don't. Just stay still, all right? Don't touch me.
Surprised, James nods, clasping his hands behind his back in a way that Regulus can see, the younger boy approaching him slowly. Regulus's curls are long enough now to be messy after the game, his cheeks still flushed, making his eyes stand out, the grey, bright and intense, trained on James's face. When they come toe to toe, Regulus pauses for a moment, looking at James intently before rising up on the balls of his feet to press a quick kiss to his lips. The touch is soft, and when he pulls away, both of them are breathing heavily.
I got distracted watching you.
James can tell that it costs Regulus something to give up that truth.
Usually I can tune everything out when I'm flying. That's why I love it so much. But you... All that time I was supposed to be looking for the snitch, and I couldn't take my eyes off of you.
James feels his breath hitch. He knows what this is. An apology. an olive branch. James almost tells Regulus that it isn't necessary, except that he doesn't want Regulus to move, to hide behind his walls again. They aren't touching. James's hands still behind his back, but they're close. And there's something about the soft tones of Regulus's voice that sends shocks of electricity through him.
You take it on too easily. The role of the villain. Like you think you deserve it. Like you're trying to atone for something. Your family's guilt isn't your own, Regulus. You don't have to bear it. You aren't to them.
Something complicated is happening in the other boy's eyes, and James wishes he knew what it was.
Sometimes I think I was born with blood on my hands.
James wants so desperately to reach out, to pull him close, to hold him. But he doesn't, because Regulus doesn't want that, because he trusts James not to.
You've been saving me.
Saying that is the next best thing. If he can't wrap him in his arms, he'll wrap him in his words.
These past few weeks, everything that's been going on was serious. If it weren't for you, I'd be sunk.
James takes in a deep breath, leaning closer but still not touching. It's Regulus who ends up bringing their foreheads together.
You're not bad, Regulus.
Maybe. But I don't think I'm good either.
Reg.
James has no idea what they've been telling him at Grimmauld Place, but he knows it's fucked him up, made him think he's something he isn't. It hurts, he realizes, to love someone who can't love themselves. Like watching a work of art set itself on fire. They stay like that, frozen, pressed together. James closes his eyes and listens to Regulus breathe, surprised by how comforting it is. He doesn't know how much time passes before Regulus steps back.
You're my person.
What?
You wanted to know what you are to me.
Regulus has a flush high in his cheeks.
You're my person. You're mine.
James feels a smile tug at his mouth, something fluttering in his stomach.
Okay, Reg, yeah, I'm yours. You're mine too.
The other boy nods, exhaling, like he'd been worried. James can't imagine why. He's completely gone on the kid. He thought he'd made that clear.
I won't be able to get away tonight.
I figured.
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
This time Regulus doesn't pause at the door.
If a man could be two places at one time, I'd be with you tomorrow and today, beside you all the way. If the world should stop with all things spinning slowly down to die, I'd spend the end with you. And when the world was through, then one by one the stars would all go out. Then you and I would simply fly away.
The locker room is empty by the time James gets there. He doesn't mind. He feels a little raw. He needs time to pull himself together before talking to anyone. It isn't that it's bad exactly, just intense. But then, it always is with Reg. He thinks of all the art, paintings and music and plays about love. Lines and lines dedicated to trying to get this feeling out. Metaphors and similes, blended colours and golden frames, trying to make it into something that can be spoken and seen and touched. James thinks he gets that now, at least a little bit. The desperate desire to take the swelling inside his chest and say, "Look, it's real."
James!
It is clear, the minute he walks through the portrait hall into the common room, that the Gryffindor team has spent the time since he last saw them getting drunk. Well, the team and company. Peter and Remus are there, along with Lily. His eyes meet hers briefly before looking away. They still haven't spoken since that day on the lawn, and James isn't sure he's up for any more confrontation today.
You lot certainly seem to be having a good time.
James smiles, though. Quite honestly, he'd like nothing more than to go upstairs and sleep for several hours.
We're mourning.
Mary holds up a half-empty bottle of something James can't recognise but assumes is alcoholic.
Ah.
James drops his bag and sits down next to Remus.
Sorry about the game.
Remus presses into his side just enough to be comforting before pulling away.
Thanks.
Someone hands him a bottle and he takes it without thinking, though he doesn't really feel like drinking.
To Frank.
Mary hoists her drink in the air, all brown curls and red lips and devilish eyes.
The most anal retentive captain at Hogwarts.
Hear, hear!
Everyone raises their own glass and takes a drink. The alcohol burns on its way down James's throat. He really needs to get something to eat. He's not sure when the last time he had food was. This morning?
So, Mary,
Frank smiles, Alice between his legs, leaning back against his chest.
biggest pain in my ass.
The rest of the room raise their glasses again. More burning liquid pooling in James's stomach. He doesn't know why he feels so off.
I'd have thought that title would go to James.
Please. Frank and James are basically the same person.
Not quite the same, I don't think. For starters, I'm pretty sure I've never had detention.
Jesus, really? Blimey, what have you been doing the last 7 years? Sleeping?
Some of us are just smart enough not to get caught.
Smart enough? Or not bold enough?
James grins.
All right, settle down, children.
Mary sits perched on the arm of the sofa, lording over the rest of them on the floor.
I meant, when it comes to Quidditch, they're both big nerds.
I believe the term you're looking for is top-tier athletes.
I'll drink to that.
Frank sends James a smile, tipping his bottle to him.
I can't believe I missed that bloody snitch.
Marlene is sitting at Mary's feet, knees pulled up, head in her hands, and at least 2 empty drinks beside her.
Oh, are you still on that?
Mary looks down at her friend with extreme disinterest.
Really, darling, it's done. Move on.
Oh, we could have won. If I'd just been a little faster.
McKinnon,
Frank leans around Alice to put his hand on Marlene's arm.
it's okay. You're a brilliant seeker. You'll get them next year, yeah?
Marlene scrunches her nose.
But you won't be here.
Okay.
Mary reaches down and takes the drink right out of her hand.
That's enough for you, you bloody lightweight.
Ma, baby, look at me.
Alice leans forward. Marlene turns her big eyes on the older girl, her big red eyes.
Jeez, how long were you guys drinking before I got here?
Not long. She's just been pounding them back. It was impressive, honestly.
We do not
Alice has taken hold of Marlene's hands and is looking at her very intently.
win Quidditch games for boys.
Right. Yeah.
But that only lasts for about a minute before she pulls away from Alice, collapsing onto her back.
Oh, I can't believe I didn't see it.
There.
Mary nudges her with her foot in what James thinks is supposed to be a consoling gesture.
Stupid, Regulus Black.
I'll drink to that.
Asshole.
Yeah.
For a second, James thinks he feels Remus go stiff beside him, but he can't figure out why. Maybe because Regulus makes him think of Sirius? James doesn't know, and he's too tired to figure it out, downing the rest of his bottle before looking for a new one.
I still can't believe that little twerp had the audacity to fuck with you like that.
Alice has always been too much of a mama bear for her own good.
What did he say, anyway?
It takes a second before James realizes that the question is directed at him, and that every set of eyes in the circle is now turned in his direction. Of course, he knew that Regulus had been right, that conversations would inevitably end up here. But somehow he still feels unprepared. Eventually, James shrugs, a motion he hopes looks more natural than it feels.
Don't remember. Wasn't really paying attention.
He takes a deep pull of his drink. Mary arches her brow.
That bad, huh?
I didn't say that.
But it's bad enough that you don't want to tell us what it was.
I didn't say that either.
Maybe we should talk about something else?
Remus looks around hopefully, and not for the first time, James thanks the gods for Remus bloody Lupin.
Wait, now I'm intrigued.
Alice leans further forward in Frank's lap, a look in her eyes that says she's not about to let this go.
What did he say, James? 'Cause Whatever it was, it got you playing like a rock star.
James looks at her for a long minute before leaning forward himself.
Who says my playing had anything to do with him? Remember, Alice, we do not win Quidditch games for boys.
Alice clinks her glass against his as she falls back against Frank's chest.
Touché!
Was it about Lily?
Everyone looks up at Mary, who's now considering James thoughtfully.
Don't bring me into this.
Up until this point, Lily has been uncharacteristically quiet. She's sitting against the side of the armchair, knees bent and pulled up, bottle hanging between them. James looks at her and then away.
No.
But of course, Mary can't let it go. If anything, his flat denial seems to egg her on. That same sharp look in her eyes that he noticed on the field. The one that doesn't feel like joking.
I bet it was.
Why would Black interrupt a Quidditch game just to rib James about Lily?
James appreciates the sentiment, but he really doesn't think audience participation is going to help the situation. Mary shrugs.
It's a well-known weakness.
I told you he didn't.
Then what did he say?
James rolls his eyes.
I don't know, something about how shit I am. Does it matter?
Oh, wow.
The spark back in Alice's eyes makes James' stomach squirm.
You're lying.
I am not.
James is starting to feel a little desperate now.
I really think we should change the subject. Frank, Alice, when do you guys start aura training?
But it's too late.
Makes sense that you wouldn't want to tell us if he says something horrible about her.
I told you to leave me out of this.
And I told you that he didn't say shit about Lily.
James somehow finishes off his second drink. He reaches for another.
Maybe you should slow down.
If I have to deal with her,
James motions jerkily in Mary's direction as he grabs another bottle.
I'm gonna need more alcohol.
What was it, Potter? Come on, I'll never sleep if I don't know.
It couldn't have been that bad, could it? Regulus has always seemed pretty harmless to me.
I don't know about that.
What?
James turns to his friend.
What do you mean?
Remus looks thoroughly uncomfortable, like he hadn't meant to let that slip out.
Nothing, never mind.
I'm with Lupin. The quiet ones are always the ones with the sharpest teeth.
Oh, piss off, would you?
But why not just tell us what he said?
Pete.
Remus shoots him a silencing look.
Had to be some Death Eater nonsense.
Mary's eyes are set intently on James, clearly enjoying how uncomfortable this is making him.
Let me guess. He called her a mudblood.
He's not Snape.
Well, fuck you both.
Lily gets to her feet and storms out of the common room.
Lily?
The redhead doesn't turn around.
Jesus, Mary, was that necessary?
Mary shrugs, though James doesn't quite believe she feels as indifferent about it as she's making it seem.
I didn't know she was still so touchy about it.
Marlene collapses onto her back again.
I should go check on her.
Eventually, Alice pats Frank on the leg as she starts to get to her feet.
No.
James takes a mouthful of his drink before setting it down and getting up himself.
I'll go.
No one looks particularly confident about that plan.
James, are you sure you...
I said it.
But James is already moving towards the corridor.
I'll go.
At first, James worries he won't be able to find her. He doesn't have the map, and truth be told, he has no idea where Lily Evans goes when she's upset. Luckily, the corridors are mostly empty and he only has to wander around for a few minutes before he spots a red head sitting in one of the windows.
Go away, please.
Lily doesn't even bother to check who it is. James, predictably, does not go away. Instead, he leans against the wall next to the window.
Look, I'm sorry for bringing him up, okay? Mary was just...
Being a bitch? Yes, I know. She's angry.
That surprises James, knocking him off course for a second.
Angry?
She's worked really hard to be as good as she is at Quidditch.
James blinks, feeling lost.
Okay. I get that losing sucks.
Lily shakes her head.
She isn't angry about losing.
Then what is she angry about?
This was going to be her game. For once, she was the star. She was scoring the goals, and you were...
Playing like shit, yeah, I know.
Lily rolls her eyes but doesn't look away from the window.
Then, all of a sudden, you, I don't know, woke up, stole the show the way you do. Now all anyone can talk about is your bloody comeback, and all that work she did for the first half of the game is forgotten. So she's hacked off, but she's also married, so she can't just shout about it like the rest of us. She has to pretend she doesn't care, that she's above it all. God forbid she actually care about something. It'd ruin her reputation.
Okay.
James fidgets against the wall, unsure of what to do with any of this information. though he supposes it does help explain why Mary's been having a go at him all bloody day.
I guess I don't really see how any of that is my fault.
Lily rests her forehead against the glass.
It isn't. It's just infuriating.
James blinks, looking down at her. Long red hair braided down her back, green eyes reflected in the glass.
I'm infuriating.
It's all infuriating.
What is?
She shakes her head, finally sitting up straight and looking at him properly, eyes sharp.
All of it. We come here at such a disadvantage. We've never even seen magic before, never even known it existed, and then suddenly we're thrown into these classes with people like you who have been here their whole lives, and it's like we're always playing catch-up.
James tries to keep up with her.
When you say we, you mean...
Muggleborns, yes. Or mudbloods, I guess. The amount that people are throwing that word around these days, it might as well be a bloody nickname.
James flinches, but Lily doesn't give him the chance to respond.
Mary has to work twice as hard as you do to be on that team. The first time she saw a broom, flew on one, she was 11. By which time I'm sure you'd been flying as long as you'd been walking.
Which James has to admit is not an inaccurate statement.
She can't practice when she goes home for the summer, or Christmas. Hell, she doesn't even have her own broom because she can't bloody afford it.
The words pour out of Lily and James realises that they've been building in her for quite some time.
None of that is your fault. I understand. You were born a pureblood. You were born wealthy. You can't help it. But sometimes it's fucking aggravating. Especially when you walk around acting like we're all equals. Because we aren't. Because we never will be. No one will ever look at you and decide that they can't be seen with you anymore because of your fucking blood.
She looks away again, leaving James shaken. It feels like a long time that they stay like that, not speaking or moving, neither of them even bothering to make eye contact. Eventually he sits down beside her, elbows on his knees, hands clasped between them.
It scares me.
What does?
How easy it is for me to hurt people. Because I can't always see it. I never thought about how much longer I've been flying than Mary, just because of who I am. We don't use magic before we turn 11, before we come here. So I never saw it as an advantage. But you're right, of course. I might not have been using it, but I was around it. I understood it.
He swallows, running a hand over his face. He can feel Lily's eyes on him, but he doesn't look at her, staring intently at the wall across from him.
Sirius hurt Remus.
I know.
James is well aware that she can't possibly. At least not really.
I'm so fucking mad at him, you know. Part of me is terrified too. Because Sirius and I were more similar than we are different. And I don't believe for a second that he meant it. That he meant to hurt Remus. But he did anyway. Because he didn't see it. See how this is all different for Remus. More fragile. And I'm scared that I could make that mistake too. That I make it all the time, without even realising.
James still hasn't figured out whether it makes it harder or easier to forgive Sirius, being certain that he would never consciously hurt Remus. Does intent matter when the wounds you've made are so big? Eventually she shifts so that they sit side by side, backs to the window.
It's really irritating how difficult you make it to stay angry with you.
Do you want to be angry with me?
Lily pulls her mouth to the side, thinking.
Sometimes, maybe. Simpler that way, isn't it?
I guess. I'm not sorry about punching Snape.
He feels Lily stiffen beside him.
I don't like him. I don't think he's a good guy, but I know that I went about things wrong that day on the lawn. That I created a situation that was volatile. That you got hurt because of that.
He turns to her now, their eyes meeting.
That I am sorry for.
There's nothing weak or delicate about Lily Evans' stare. It's all fight. She has the type of eyes that you go to war with.
Okay. Thank you.
James nods and then, after a brief pause, gets back to his feet.
This mean we're friends again?
He puts his hands in his pockets. She smiles.
Sure, Potter. We're friends.
Good.
He smiles back.
I missed having you around, Evans.
And he means it.
they could really use.
They couldn't catch a snitch if it bit them in the face.
They're really going at it, huh?
James pulls up next to Mary, who's still perched on the sofa. She nods, bringing her drink to her lips.
It would be interesting if they weren't all completely wrong.
James snorts, watching as a very red-faced Marlene gets on her knees, hands gesticulating wildly.
How is she?
James looks over at Mary, but her eyes are still on the fight below them.
She's alright, yeah.
James realizes then that he doesn't really have any idea what the girls' friendships are like. He assumes they're close, but he doesn't actually know.
Listen, James. About earlier, I didn't mean to pry. Well, actually, I very much did mean to pry, but I probably shouldn't have.
James waves her words away.
Don't worry about it. Listen, thanks for picking up the slack today. That game would have been really fucking embarrassing if it hadn't been for you.
Mary looks at him out of the corner of her eye, giving him a sharp smile.
Oh, I know.
Good.
That's when James notices that Peter is sitting alone.
Talk to you later, yeah?
He absent-mindedly pats Mary's shoulder as he maneuvers his way over to the other marauder, crouching down beside him.
Good to see Lily didn't dismember you.
Oh, ye of little faith. Hey, where's Mooney at?
James watches the tightening of Peter's eyes.
He went to bed.
James's eyebrows raise, surprised.
Bed? It's barely 8.
Peter only shrugs, though his mouth has formed a firm line.
That's what he said.
Wormtail, what happened?
Peter shoots him a sidelong look.
Sirius came by.
James swears every muscle in his body grows tense at those words.
What'd he do?
Nothing.
Peter shakes his head.
Mary told him to sit down, and he said he had homework to do and ran up the stairs, but, well, you know, Mooney got pretty quiet after that. And then he said he was tired.
Is this how it's going to be now? James wonders with an ache in the pit of his stomach. Avoiding each other for the next 2 years?
I thought about going to check up on him, but I don't know, it's hard to tell with him these days. Whether he wants us around or not.
Yeah.
James slaps him on the back.
You stay here. I'll go.
Peter looks worried but nods.
Let me know if there's anything I can do, yeah?
Sure, Pete.
James spares their friends a brief look, just enough to confirm they're all too engrossed in the debate to notice him leave, and then he slips up the stairs. The room is dark when he walks in, and for a moment he thinks that maybe Remus really did go to sleep, but then he sees him, standing by his bed, book in one hand, bottle in the other. He doesn't recognize the book. He thinks it might be Muggle, but Remus isn't exactly reading it, just looking.
Hey, Moons.
James leans against the bedpost opposite him. Remus doesn't look up.
I'm so tired of feeling like this.
He makes James's heart squeeze.
I know.
Remus gives the book in his hand one last look before chucking it on his bed and bringing the bottle to his lips, chugging it back.
Merlin, now who needs to slow down?
It's supposed to help, right?
Remus squeezes his eyes shut.
I just need something to make it stop.
Remus's eyes open, bright in the shine from the moon outside.
It's what you were trying to do earlier, right?
James blinks, taking in the slightly unstable posture of his friend.
Don't know what you mean.
You were trying to forget him?
Something slightly uneasy flutters through James's stomach.
Forget who, mate?
Remus stares at him long and hard for a moment before exhaling.
Nothing. No one. Never mind.
He holds out the bottle to James, who takes it without thinking.
I'm going to bed.
He doesn't bother with his clothes, just shocks off his shoes before crawling onto his mattress.
It'll get easier, you know. We'll figure it out.
You think? You want to know what the worst part is?
No, James thinks. Isn't this bad enough?
Sure, Moons.
Sometimes I don't even care. Don't care what he's done. Don't care that it was wrong. Sometimes I think I'd let him do anything he wanted to me, just as long as I still got to be around him. As long as he was still mine sometimes.
Those words burn all the way down.
I'm sorry.
Is all that James has left.
Everyone's sorry. Everyone's always sorry. And none of it ever makes a difference. I fucking hate that word.
It's clear that sleep is sneaking up on him. James moves back towards the door when Remus stops him.
No. Don't.
James looks back to see him curled on his side, eyes wide open.
Stay? Can you stay? Just for a few minutes?
Of course, Mooney.
James gives him a weak smile he isn't sure he can see.
Always.
He puts the bottle down on his bedside table before lying on his own bed, face towards the ceiling.
I know you don't believe me, but I'm going to find us a way out of this. I don't know what it is yet, but it won't be like this forever, okay? I won't let it be.
He waits for a few moments before turning his head, finding Remus's eyes closed.
We simply choose to forget. So it's the laughter we will remember whenever we remember the way we were, the way
James spent the last night before the summer holidays with Regulus. They laid on their backs, Regulus's fingers tracing the lines of his palm and the veins of his arm, causing every inch of his skin to tingle and spark to life. Oversensitive under Regulus's barely there touches. They talked a little. They kissed a lot. Regulus had that faraway look in his eyes, like he was already back in London, already trying to close off parts of himself. James tried not to notice, not to let it hurt. But, of course, it did anyway. It was late when he finally pulled himself together, not sure why he waited so long.
I have something for you.
He pulled out a stack of letters, 8 to be precise, 1 for every week of summer.
I thought about writing one for every day,
He rubbed the back of his neck.
but it seemed excessive.
Regulus stared at the envelopes in his hands, running them over, like he couldn't quite believe they were real.
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, I know I can't send you post over the summer, so I thought I'd give them to you now.
Regulus blinked up at him.
Give them to me now?
They're all dated, so you can read them like I'm sending them to you in real time. I just thought I didn't want you to be alone all summer. Maybe that's dumb, actually. Now that I'm saying it out loud, it's definitely dumb. Sorry, you don't have to.
Regulus kissed him then. It had been a big kiss, full of feelings and words and desperation. All James could do was take it, was hold him.
Thank you. I love them. I love you.
Several weeks later, lying on his bed in his childhood home, James runs over that memory for the 100th time. The way it had felt to hear Regulus say those words again, without needing to be forced or asked, like they came naturally to him. He closes his eyes and tries to imagine the feel of the other boy's lips, the weight of him in his hands. He doesn't know if Regulus is okay, if he's read any of the letters, if he's thinking about James the way James is thinking about him. Constantly. Incessantly. He feels raw with all the things he doesn't know.
James, breakfast!
James slides out of bed, already dressed, but reluctant to leave his room. Sirius hasn't tried to talk to him since they've been here, but that doesn't mean it isn't still incredibly uncomfortable to be in the same room as him. Part of James, the petty, childish part, is mad at Sirius for not trying harder. He should be bending over backwards to make this right. He should be begging for James's forgiveness, for Remus's, for Peter's. Instead, he's just gone silent, keeping his eyes down and his face hidden behind a curtain of dark hair, like he's trying to disappear. James drops into his chair at the kitchen table, Sirius in the seat across from him, eyes trained on his breakfast. It's bright out. Has been almost every day this week. Skies clear and sun fat in the sky. It's aggravating since James is not feeling particularly sunny at the moment.
Well, look who it is, risen from the dead.
James's mother drops a plate of eggs and toast in front of him, giving his head a quick kiss.
Have you boys got any plans for today?
She sweeps around the kitchen, brewing coffee with the twirl of her wand and sending dishes into the sink with another casual movement. Though he wouldn't have thought it possible, he thinks he sees Sirius curl further in on himself. His mother insists on acting as though everything is fine, as though they'll wake up one morning and it'll all be forgotten. Like Sirius didn't fucking betray each and every one of them.
Going to Remus's.
James shoves eggs into his mouth like they've personally offended him.
Both of you?
No.
James glares across the table at Sirius, daring him to say something. But he just keeps staring at his plate, barely touching his food.
Don't you think?
Mum, leave it.
James meets her gaze, her stare not nearly as light-hearted and carefree as her tone would suggest.
When will you be back?
James shrugs, barely tasting the food he's not eating, just desperate to finish and get away from this table and out of this house. He spent nearly every day this summer at Remus's, which James knows Remus hates, but there's nothing to be done for it. They can't hang out at Pete's. His mother's really weird about having people in her house. As in, she hates it, and they're not allowed. And they can't come here for obvious reasons, so the Lupins is their only option. James actually quite likes Remus's house, a small farm in the Welsh countryside. James has always thought it a crime that Remus hasn't got an accent, but he claims he doesn't actually speak to any Welsh people, and since neither of his parents are from there originally, he's never picked it up. James wipes his mouth on the back of his hand before standing and dumping his plate in the sink.
Merlin, James, where's the fire?
Gotta catch the portkey.
He kisses her quickly on the cheek, not sparing Sirius a single glance. James slips on his trainers at the front door before pushing outside, not even bothering to do up his laces. Instantly, he feels lighter, even as the early August heat sticks to his skin. Lately, that house is full of all the things he can't fix. Promises he hasn't kept. He told Remus it wouldn't always be like this, and he meant it. He just hasn't quite figured out how yet. There are a couple portkeys set up in the area, leaving at designated times throughout the day. It's not a terrible way to travel, but it's also not the most convenient. The portkey only gets him to Wales, and then he has to take a Muggle bus to Remus's. He's become quite familiar with Muggle transportation this summer. Far more familiar than he ever wanted to be, if he's being honest. Not that he's never used it before, of course. His mum used to take him into London when he was little, before Hogwarts. Day trips to the museums and parks and things, so he'd ridden the tube a few times. But public transport in a major city and public transport in the middle of nowhere, Wales, are two very different experiences, James has come to learn. The bus takes ages, of course, and then there's still another 20-minute walk from the road to Remus's front door. By the time he gets there, James is drenched in sweat and the day is half gone.
Oh, hello, James.
Hope opens the door for him.
You look knackered. Come in, come in.
She waves him inside.
Can I get you anything? Squash?
Yes, please. That would be brilliant.
Hope smiles at him like she knows how bad the trip was.
Where's Remus?
James follows her into the kitchen. He's completely obsessed with the Lupin's kitchen. It's full of Muggle appliances he's never seen before. Like a fridge, which apparently keeps things cold no matter what the temperature is outside. James has asked Remus multiple times, but he swears it isn't magic. There's also a microwave that instantly heats up your food. Also, allegedly, not magic. And an iron that makes waffles. Brilliant, James thinks. All of it.
Remus is out back.
Hope smiles as she hands him a cold glass of squash that he proceeds to gulp down like he's just spent a week in the desert. Hope arches her brow, smiling in a way that looks so much like Remus it's almost scary.
Another?
James chews on his bottom lip like he's actually considering saying no.
If you don't mind.
I don't mind.
Hope Lupin, James has learned this summer, is infinitely more relaxed when A, her husband isn't home, and B, she isn't surrounded by wizards. Well, adult wizards, anyway. She doesn't seem to mind James and Peter so much, but the one time his mother came to apparate him home, he noticed her getting jumpy again. James doesn't think it's prejudice or anything. It feels more like fear. He can't imagine what that must be like, to be married to someone you're afraid of, to have a son you're afraid of. He knows Remus feels it, the constant humming of fear beneath his mother's skin, like she's expecting to be attacked. Though he imagines some of that is Fenrir's fault.
It's been so nice having you boys over so much this summer.
She returns with his refilled glass.
Usually we barely get to see Rem. He's at your place so much.
James smiles, nodding non-committally.
It's a shame Sirius hasn't been able to join you, but then it's good for a teenage boy to have a summer job. I always worked in the summers, at my father's shop.
James freezes mid-swallow.
Oh.
He chokes back the last of his squash, looking uncertainly at Hope.
Sorry. What was that about Sirius?
His job at the Quidditch shop in Diagonally, or whatever it's called. Remus told me that's why he hasn't been around this summer.
She's still smiling at him, though it feels a little forced. And James suddenly has the intense desire to get out of this kitchen.
Right, yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. Definitely true. He's been really busy at his job.
He rubs nervously at the back of his neck, trying to understand why Remus would lie about that.
Well, I should...
He nods towards the back door.
Of course. Let me know if you need anything. Plenty more squash and snacks. Feel free to help yourself.
Right, thanks.
James quickly turns around and bolts out of the house. The Lupin's garden is just an untended field. It might have grown crops at some point, but now it mostly grows wildflowers and weeds. James cuts his way through it, sun beating down, eyes peeled for a sandy blonde head. Eventually he spots it, under the only tree for a mile, right at the edge of the property.
Could you have gone any further, Merlin?
He finally makes it up to him. Remus is leaning against the trunk, dark shades pushed up into his hair, book in his lap. The bastard barely even looks up.
If I'm any closer to the house, she comes out every 5 minutes to check on me.
James collapses onto the ground in a sweaty heap.
Mind you, I don't know what she's so worried about. I've already been bitten by a werewolf.
Geez, in a real chipper mood today, aren't we?
Remus just shrugs, going back to his book as James tries to catch his breath.
Speaking of your mum...
He pushes himself up onto his elbow so he can look at his friend properly.
Why did you tell her Sirius has a summer job?
Because she wouldn't stop asking why he hasn't been over.
James feels like he's missed something.
Surely she knows why. She was there in Dumbledore's office.
Yeah, but as far as she's concerned, that never happened.
James blinks.
What?
Remus nods, running a hand over his flushed face.
You know how she is. Something bad happens and she just sort of decides that it didn't. Him not hanging around was ruining the illusion for her, so she kept asking until I gave her a lie that would make her feel better.
James can feel his eyes widen.
Merlin.
Yep.
I didn't realise she was so invested in your friendship.
Remus grimaces.
She isn't really. It's not about him. It's about me. She's...
Remus struggles for a moment, dropping his book onto the ground beside him and leaning forward, arms balanced on his knees.
She's worried that I'm going to end up alone. Just in general. In life. Werewolves don't have friends. Lonely, pitiful creatures.
James feels his blood run cold, realizing that Remus is repeating things his parents have actually said to him.
My dad's told her that my life is doomed to be pretty fucking miserable. She's worried that this thing with Sirius is the start of that.
The start of what?
James is trying to sort through the various levels of anger currently boiling under his skin.
Me losing friends because of my... condition.
Bullshit.
Remus just shrugs, falling back against the tree again.
Makes her feel better. Thinking he's just busy.
James stares at him for a moment, before reaching forward and jabbing him in the side with his finger.
Ow! James, what the hell?
Stop it.
Remus's eyes narrow.
Stop what?
James gestures to him with his hand.
Being so melancholic. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah, okay. Still don't see why the violence was necessary.
Remus, I mean it. You're not going to be alone. Not ever. And you're about the least pitiful person I know, so that's out too.
They're staring at one another, and James sees the small crack in Remus's sarcastic exterior.
Least pitiful person, huh?
James nods.
Definitely. Marlene's a close second, though.
Thanks.
James tries to pretend he doesn't hear the shake in Remus's voice. He nods, collapsing onto his back again, looking up at the tree branches above them.
Your family's pretty fucked up, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, a bit.
James doesn't feel any of the breeze on his skin, his body slowly overheating. He was not made for the heat, or for Muggle public transportation.
How is he?
James cringes, in no doubt about who he is.
Miserable?
I feel like that's supposed to make me feel better, but it doesn't.
Yeah,
James nods even though he's not sure that Remus can see.
Tell me about it.
Look, James, if you want to forgive him...
Not a chance.
James turns his head to look up at his friend.
Unless you want to...
Want to? Absolutely. Can I? Fuck. I don't know.
And oh, does James ever feel that right down in the pit of his stomach? He misses Sirius, desperately, almost more so now that they're home, without anything else to distract him. Since he was 11, all he's wanted is for Sirius to live with him, and now he does and they're not even speaking.
We'll figure it out.
That seems to be all he says these days. They've pulled off elaborate pranks, figured out how to make a map that tracks everyone in the castle, turned themselves into animagi. Surely they can work their way through this too. James can feel Remus looking at him. He does that a lot these days. Like he's trying to figure James out. Like something is bothering him. James keeps waiting for Remus to bring it up, but he never does. Which James supposes shouldn't be a surprise.
Moony?
Yeah?
You're staring.
I'm not.
James rolls his eyes, propping himself up on his elbows again.
You were.
Remus looks at him, and then away, gaze running over the fields in front of them. James can't tell if the flush on the tops of his cheeks is from the sun, or from being caught.
Something you want to ask me?
Nothing you want to answer.
That catches James's interest.
Try me.
He watches Remus chew his bottom lip, hands fidgeting in his lap as he keeps looking out at the fields instead of back at James.
Sirius told me you're seeing a bloke.
Remus is blunt. So blunt, in fact, that it takes James a minute or two to catch up.
He
shakes his head, sitting up properly and staring at his friend who still isn't looking at him.
When did you talk to Sirius?
Remus looks down.
I don't know. Few weeks after it happened.
It?
Remus rolls his eyes.
You know what I mean.
I didn't know you were talking to him.
I wasn't. I'm not.
Remus has started pulling up the grass beside him. Nervous habit.
Well, clearly you are.
James isn't entirely sure why he's so peeved by this. Maybe just because it feels like a secret. Something that's been kept from him on purpose. Or maybe it's because he's so desperate to talk to Sirius himself. Remus scrubs at his face with his hands.
It was only once, okay? Is that really what's important here?
James just stares at him for a minute. T-shirt 2 sizes too big, ratty jean cut-offs he definitely made himself. Remus Lupin in his natural habitat. The unhappiness is oozing out of him.
Fine.
James runs a hand through his hair.
Fine, okay, so he told you. I reckon you don't have a problem with it?
No, I don't have a problem with it.
But it's clear there's more. James can feel it. Feel the weight of it hanging in the silence between them. Finally, Remus looks back at him.
Is it Regulus Black?
James wishes he was better at controlling his face. Wishes he couldn't feel his eyes widen or his mouth drop open. He is eventually able to school his features into something resembling neutral, but by then it's too late. Remus has seen.
Jesus fuck, James!
Remus hangs his head between his knees like he's going to be sick, and James thinks he might join him. Despite being in the middle of a field, James suddenly feels claustrophobic. Trapped.
How did you know? Did Sirius...
You think if Sirius knew, either of you'd still be breathing?
James flinches. Not that he didn't know that already, but it feels worse having someone else say it out loud.
I saw you on the map. Saw you together in the middle of the night. Put 2 and 2 together. So, Merlin, I really wanted to be wrong.
James swallows, throat tight. He's not sure what to say. How to explain. What to explain. It's all a bit of a mess, really. Apparently, Remus feels similarly because for too long they stay frozen. Neither of them looking, or speaking, or moving. The heat is getting too much for James.
How long?
Last fall.
Fuck. What the fuck, James? What are you doing? What are you thinking? After everything? After what they did to Sirius?
That wasn't Regulus.
Anger is flaring in James's chest, which is better than whatever sad ache he'd been feeling before, so he'll take it.
He's trapped there just like Sirius was.
No, he isn't. You know he isn't. Sirius has been trying to get out of that house since he was 11 bloody years old. I mean, He got sorted into Gryffindor for Merlin's sake. From where I'm sitting, Regulus looks pretty fucking comfortable.
You have no idea what you're talking about.
James is suddenly very grateful to be out in the middle of nowhere, away from everyone.
He's fucking terrified. Did you know Wahlberger uses legilimency on them?
And judging by the look of horror that flashes across Remus's face, James is going to assume he didn't.
They're all in his head, fucking him up, making him bury himself. So don't sit there and act like it's just as easy as walking away, because it isn't.
There's something new in Remus's gaze now. Something softer. Pity, James thinks. It doesn't make him feel much better.
But is he trying?
What?
Something scratches at the inside of James's chest.
Christ, James, I get it, okay? I was there too, yeah? All those times Sirius showed back up to school looking like he had the fucking life beaten out of him. I know it's not easy. None of this is easy. But Sirius has always tried. Regulus walks around like he's one of them. He takes the protection it gives him, the privilege.
Remus pinches the bridge of his nose while James just stares at him, the scratching in his chest growing violent.
Maybe he doesn't agree with what his friends are doing. I don't know. But he isn't stopping them. Didn't stop them from hurting his brother. Is that okay with you? Can you get past that? Because to be honest, James, I'm having a bloody hard time understanding how.
James wants to scream, an unbearable pressure building behind his lungs. He shakes his head, closing his eyes, trying to get his thoughts in order. He can see Regulus in the supply room, eyes wide and earnest.
You're my person. You're mine.
Where's he supposed to go, Remus? Sirius had us. Regulus has no one.
When Remus doesn't speak, James forces himself to open his eyes again, finding his friend's gaze focused on him.
He has you now. Doesn't he?
James nods.
In the dark. In secret. Doesn't exactly inspire confidence, does it?
Remus takes that in, leaning his head back against the tree again and looking up at the branches above.
That your idea? Or his?
I don't know.
James is not sure if it's a lie or not.
He's more scared than I am.
Makes sense. Don't expect his lot will be particularly accepting.
No. I need time to make him see. Make him understand that I'm not going anywhere. That he can trust me.
James takes in a shaky breath, trying to ignore the sting that confession causes. Because he can see it, in Regulus's hesitancy, in the way that he still pulls away, that there is a part of him that doesn't trust that James will be there when he needs him.
I'm going to get him out of there, Remus.
Remus looks back over at him, expression unreadable.
If anyone could, it'd be you. Just...
He bites his lower lip, the pity making a reappearance.
Don't wear yourself out trying to save someone who doesn't want to be saved. Okay?
James breathes through the ache that causes.
He wants to be Moons, really.
James hopes that that's true. He's almost certain it is. Almost. His friend only nods.
You planning on telling Padfoot about this at some point?
James collapses onto his back again.
Before? Maybe. Now? No. Let's just... one problem at a time, yeah?
Yeah.
James tries to ignore the skepticism in his voice. It's nearly dinner by the time James gets home. He missed the bus, and the next one took ages. How Muggles get anywhere on time, he has no idea. Right now, he just wants to go upstairs and lie down. Maybe take a shower. He's covered in sweat and dirt from sitting on the ground all afternoon.
James, hun, that you?
His mother's voice comes from his father's office. James groans internally, heading grumpily down the hall.
Yeah, you need something.
He swings into the room, not moving far beyond the door.
Hello to you too.
Sorry, I'm just tired.
She's sitting at his father's desk, a giant wooden monstrosity that reminds James far too much of Dumbledore's office.
How's Remus?
Fine.
Good. I haven't seen him much recently.
Oi, what is it with mothers and not being able to take a hint?
I wonder why that is.
You can be angry without being snotty, you know.
She arches her eyebrow. James runs a hand through his sweaty hair.
Thanks for the tip. Did you call me in here just to lecture me about my attitude, or is there something else you want?
Wow, you really are in a mood, aren't you?
I hate the bus.
That sound pulls the corners of James's mouth up.
Fair enough, I suppose.
And then she pushes something forward across the desk. James squints at it, stepping closer.
What is it?
A letter. It's addressed to you. It came by Muggle post.
What?
He scrunches his face, looking back at her.
Yes.
She smiles.
I was rather surprised too. So was the postman, now that I think about it.
Postman?
She waves his question away.
Muggle owl.
Instead of owls, muggles use men. That sounds bloody inefficient. Almost as inefficient as their stupid bosses that only come once a stupid hour.
James.
She bites back a smile.
Focus.
Oh, right.
James picks up the white envelope, with its funny little picture in the corner and neat handwriting spelling out his name and address.
Who's it from?
I don't know. There's no return address.
Return what?
Never mind. I had to run some spells on it, make sure it was safe. Technically, I'm supposed to give anything odd to Moody to check out, but...
Something twinkles in the corner of her eyes that James doesn't quite understand. A joke he's missed.
I feel confident it's safe.
Okay, cheers.
He starts to open it. His mother quickly gets up.
I'll leave you to it, shall I?
She plants a kiss on the top of his head as she breezes past.
Don't you want to know who it's from?
Oh, I have my suspicions, though feel free to confirm them later for me if you like.
Wait, Mum.
She pauses, turning back to him.
Is Sirius here?
She shakes her head.
Gone into town, to the shops. That's what he said, anyway.
She smiles sadly.
That's what he does. Most days.
James nods, suddenly not sure why he asked. He's just used to knowing.
Thanks.
She gives him one last smile before closing the door, leaving James alone in his father's office. Arguably his least favourite room in the house. He's only ever called in here when he's in trouble. It's a dark space, wooden floors and red walls, never-ending bookcases, an overly ornate fireplace. All rather suffocating if you ask James. Slowly, his attention drags back to the letter in his hands and he drops into the chair his mother just left, sliding his finger under the seal and pulling out the pages.
Hi.
James pauses, squinting at the word, the curving script. Recognition slowly dawning on him.
Don't ask me what I'm thinking. I've spent too much time with you, clearly. All my common sense is gone out the window.
Oh.
James's chest aches as he hears the words so clearly in Regulus's voice. He hadn't been ready for this.
I can't send you post via Al, but I thought, well, it's not as though my mother is checking the Muggle post. I don't think so anyway. I suppose we'll find out. I'm not even sure this will get to you. Bertha, she works at the post office here, tried to explain to me how it all works. Muggle post. I mean, sounds like a dreadful system if you ask me. But she double-checked that I addressed this correctly, so maybe there's a chance it'll make it to you. Anyway, I hope it makes it to you. I'm in Scotland, at the summer house. It's good to get out of the city, and I can fly here, which helps. My dad loves it. He grew up in the country and mostly just tolerates London for my mother's sake. He spends most of his days out in the back garden, watching me fly. It makes him happy, though I've no idea why. Still, I'll do anything at this point. He's worse than he was at Christmas. The healers don't expect him to last much longer. But then, they're always saying that. Sorry, I'm rambling. I'd start over, but I've already done this 3 times and I have to go home soon. I've been reading your letters. See, this is where I always get stuck. It's the reason for the rambling at the top. Because I've been reading your letters. That's why I'm writing this ridiculous letter and sending it in the ridiculous Muggle post. Because every time I read them, I just want to talk to you. I miss talking to you. I miss your voice. I miss the way you laugh. I miss your atrocious hair. I miss. That's all I do these days. Well, that and go to the gallery. I've visited Patroclus and Achilles a few times. Told them you say hi. God, sorry. That was awful. I don't know what I'm saying. Look, all I meant to say really is that the letters are beautiful. Your letters are beautiful. And I wish that I could be what you are to me. I know I'm not very good at this, but I want to be. For you. Anyway, this is enough embarrassment for one letter. I don't think I'll try this again, but I hope that you're happy. Whatever you're doing, whoever you're with. Yours, always.
James rereads those last two words a few times. To anyone else, it would be half-finished sign-off. But James understands.
You're my person.
Okay, Reg, yeah, I'm yours. You're mine too.
He traces them with his finger a few times, imagining Regulus sitting in some muggle post office in Scotland penning them out.
Yours, always.
He takes in a deep breath and fights the urge to find the closest port key to Scotland. Not that he'd have any real idea where he was going. Regulus never mentioned specifics. His eyes flick across the page again. Once, twice, greedy for every word, every sentence, every piece of Regulus he can squeeze out of it.
I miss.
Me too, James thinks. Christ, me too. He tries to remember if he thought to put that in his letters, but he must have. He misses Regulus the minute he walks away. The next morning, like every morning, James finds himself sitting silently across from his best friend, both of them working overtime not to look at or speak to one another, or indicate that they are, in any way, aware of the other's existence. Euphemia attempts to engage them in conversation a few times before giving up and going back to her work, parchment spread out in front of her as she ladles marmalade onto her toast. James asks her what the papers are for, but she's cagey with her answers. She always is these days. When the owls arrive, it's a welcomed break from the tension. Well, until James realises what they're delivering.
Your school lists already?
His mum peers over his shoulder. The letter is pretty standard. All his books and supplies for next term neatly laid out and...
Oh, James!
His mother beams as he holds up the Quidditch captain badge. He allows himself a brief look across the table, but Sirius is staring with an odd intensity at the parchment in his hands.
Your father is going to be over the moon.
His mum gets up to grab a mug for her coffee. James only nods. It's bittersweet, really. I mean, it's what he's always wanted, but Sirius won't be there. Or Alice, or Frank. The loss of them makes it all a bit more hollow. He passes the badge through his fingers a few times before turning back to the letter, realising suddenly that there's another page hidden behind the first.
Dear Mr. Potter, as you are aware, Frank Longbottom graduated last year, leaving your dorm with an empty bed and Sirius Black without a room. It would be possible to place him in another room, but that would require you to accept a new roommate. Since you were the one who first suggested his removal, and since some time has passed since the inciting incident, I thought it prudent to verify that it is still your wish not to room with Sirius Black. Please discuss this with Mr. Lupin and respond to me quickly with your decision. Sincerely, Minerva McGonagall.
He forgot about this, about what it means that Frank is gone. He'd always been a temporary fix, a stall, putting off the inevitable of having to deal with Sirius. James scans the letter a few more times but doesn't come up with any solutions. Part of him never wants to share a room with Sirius again. The other part is desperate to have things go back to the way they were. Of course, it isn't about him. It'll all come down to what Remus wants. Maybe he'll go back there later today and...
I don't understand.
James forgets that he's supposed to be ignoring him, looking up just as his mother reaches Sirius's side.
What is it, love?
He passes her the parchment in his hands, wide-eyed and pale. It's only then that James realises that Sirius's Hogwarts letter is still lying unopened on the table.
I don't understand why. That can't be right. I must be... Because why... Why will he do that?
James has the irritating urge to reach out and squeeze his arm. He doesn't, of course. He just keeps staring, eyes bouncing between Sirius's face and his mother's.
Oh, Sirius.
Euphemia's eyes are flicking over the page in front of her, hand falling on his shoulder.
It's a mistake, right? They've made a mistake.
His mother chews her bottom lip.
No, I don't think so. It all seems to be rather legitimate.
It's hard for James to work out what emotion is playing across Sirius's face. Pain? Disbelief? Awe? He can't take it. He breaks.
What's going on?
Both of the heads across from him snap in his direction.
His Uncle Alfred. He seems to have changed his will not long before he died and left everything to Sirius.
James's eyes go wide.
Everything?
Sirius sinks down in his chair, face pale.
I don't know why he did that. I don't. I barely knew him.
James watches his mother squeeze Sirius's shoulder again, thumb making comforting circles.
Clearly you were very important to him.
Sirius's breath hitches, eyes somewhere on the floor, not looking at either of them. James remembers the look on his face, the first time he mentioned his uncle. Remembers the care he always took with the letters he sent him. Sirius may have barely known Alfred, but knowing him at all had meant a lot to him. Sirius could be glib about his family, but however awful they were, walking away from them had still cost Sirius something. Not because he missed Grimmauld Place or Walburga, but because he missed belonging. However much the Potters embraced him, he would always be a Black, an extra piece.
We should go into town today, sort this out. The lawyer's office is in Diagon Alley, so that's easy.
Euphemia leans down and kisses the top of Sirius's head.
I'll go get ready and we can leave in an hour, okay?
Sirius nods quietly, Euphemia giving him one last squeeze before moving quickly out of the room, spelling her papers to follow behind her. The two boys remain frozen in their seats, Sirius unable to look at James, and James unable to look away from Sirius. He has no idea what's in that will, but he reckons it's probably a good amount of money. Alfred was a Black, after all. He wonders if he had a wife and children. But he mustn't have. Not if he's left everything to Sirius. James realizes, suddenly, how very little he knows about Alfred Black, guilt worming its way into his gut. He should have asked Sirius more about him. Eventually, Sirius gets up, not looking at James until he reaches the kitchen door. James turns to Sirius, startled.
Will you come with us?
James hesitates, feeling entirely unprepared for all of this. Sirius quickly shakes his head.
Sorry, that was stupid. Never mind.
Sirius.
James rushes before he can get too far down the hall. The other boy turns back, and James wonders if this is the first time they've spoken since the night it all happened. It feels like it.
I'll come. Of course I'll come.
Too many emotions flash across Sirius's face for James to make sense of them. But when he speaks, it sounds like the first breath after a deep dive.
Thank you.
The lawyer's office is a worryingly thin building, squeezed between a botany shop and a Chinese food restaurant. It's possible that at one point it was an actual colour, but it's covered in so much soot and dirt that it's now just a murky grey. They're all sitting in front of a tall, spindly wizard. His hair is orange and curly, streaked at the temples with grey. His robe starched straight and black. He has a very thin face, high cheekbones, and big watering eyes, like he's in a constant state of distress. It makes it very hard for James to take him seriously. Sirius is sat next to him, his mum on Sirius's other side. He has his head down, hands fiddling in his lap, and James is reminded unkindly of that day in Dumbledore's office.
Can I just say again, Miss Potter, what an absolute honour it is to have you here. To be able to serve you, an indescribable honour.
His mother smiles kindly.
Thank you, but you really don't need to fuss.
To be honest, James isn't sure this man has ever done anything but fuss.
Aha!
The lawyer pulls out a scroll, slowly unfurling it between his hands.
The last will and testament of Alfred Black.
He peers over at them as though expecting some kind of reaction. Applause. When he doesn't get any, he turns back to the parchment.
There are several logistical elements that I expect you're not interested in, but... here we are. To my nephew, Sirius Black III. I leave the entirety of my estate, including my home in Cornwall, my flat in Diagon Alley, and the contents of my account at Gringotts, totaling in 300,000 galleons, 700 sickles, and 50 knuts. Included in this is my art collection, encompassing...
Sirius seems to sink further into his chair with every word the lawyer says. Unable to help himself, James shifts closer, knocking their shoulders together, leaning on Sirius just long enough for him to know that it was intentional. The other boy looks up for the first time, their eyes meeting. James doesn't need him to speak to know what he's thinking. I killed him, and now I'm getting all his stuff. Eventually, Sirius's eyes break with James and return to the man in front of them.
Excuse me.
The lawyer looks up, startled.
Yes, sir?
You're sure he meant to do this?
Sirius looks at him a little desperately.
That he wasn't, I don't know, drunk or held at one point or something?
Certainly not. I was here when the will was drawn up. I witnessed it with my own eyes. Mr. Black was of sound mind. Everything above board.
The lawyer's eyes shift nervously over to James's mother.
I'm sure it was.
I just don't understand why he did it. I never gave him anything.
She smiles sadly, reaching out to brush the hair off Sirius's forehead.
Maybe you did, and you just didn't realize it. You are quite remarkable, Sirius.
Sirius flinches at that, and James knows that he's partly responsible for Sirius's astronomically high levels of self-hatred at the moment. After a brief pause, Euphemia looks back at the lawyer.
I think we're ready to continue.
Oh, yes, of course.
In the end, all they need is to confirm Sirius's magical signature in order to authenticate the will. The tap of a wand, and he's suddenly rich all on his own. No need for his mother or his inheritance. You would think he'd find some of that comforting, but he stays tense and sober the whole time, even when they make it back out onto the street.
Well?
Euphemia squints through the sun.
Since we're already here, shall we check it out?
Check what out?
She looks over at him, hand shielding her eyes.
The flat.
Her gaze skips from James to Sirius, cocking her brow in question. It takes him a minute, but eventually Sirius nods.
Yeah.
He ruffles his hair.
Yeah. Okay.
They don't talk as they maneuver through the busy streets. Sirius with his head down and his hands in his pockets. James awkwardly at his side, following the back of his mother's head. He knows he should say something. That he probably would have already, if things were different. But given that they're still fighting, because they are, aren't they? He's not really sure what the right course of action is here.
This is it.
Euphemia stops in front of a blue door with a bronze knocker, pulling a key from the envelope the lawyer gave them and holding it out to Sirius.
Yours, I believe?
Sirius takes it hesitantly, fumbling as he fits it into the lock. The door opens into a small foyer with a set of stairs leading up. James thinks he hears Sirius gulp as they push inside. The apartment is nice. Warmer than James was expecting. He always pictures the Blacks living in recreations of the Slytherin common room, but this space isn't that. There's one bedroom, the sheets still messed up, a small kitchen with a mug in the sink, shoes carelessly removed by the door, all the signs of someone meaning to return. James half expects him to walk through the door.
Well?
Finally, they all find themselves back in the living room. Euphemia stands by the front door, Sirius across the room, leaning against the entrance to the kitchen.
This is lovely. We should find a time next week, go through everything, figure out what you want to keep. I'll tell Mimi to pop by every once in a while to make sure it's kept in good shape for you until you decide you want to use it. If you want to, that is. You could always sell it or rent it out, of course. It is a rather fabulous location.
Sirius has a look on his face like he's got something stuck in his throat. He nods along, fingers nervously playing with his lower lip.
Actually, I was thinking I might move here.
You mean now?
Something cold runs down James's spine. Sirius nods, very purposefully not making eye contact with anyone.
You're still a minor, Sirius.
I know, but you're my guardian, right?
I am.
So you could give me permission to be on my own.
James is waiting for his mother to laugh. To tell Sirius what a ridiculous suggestion that is, and of course he can move in here. But that isn't what happens.
I'd have to talk to Fleamont, but if you really want to...
Are you joking?
James can't take it anymore.
He can't move out.
He turns to Sirius.
You can't move out.
Sirius glares back at him defiantly. It's the most like himself he's looked all summer.
Why not?
Why not? Because you're a kid. You don't even know how to make bloody toast. How the hell are you going to live on your own?
First of all, I'm not a kid, you prat. And I can totally make toast. Why the hell do you care anyway? Isn't this what you want?
For you to starve to death. Not really, no.
Sirius throws his arms up in frustration.
I can manage feeding myself, James. Christ.
You can't move in here.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
James turns back to his mother, jabbing an indignant finger in Sirius's direction.
Are you really going to let him do this?
I do remember saying something about needing to talk about it.
You don't get to decide what I do, Prongs.
I do when you're being an idiot.
I'm not being an idiot. Ugh, I don't get you. You kicked me out of our dorm, you don't speak to me for weeks, and now suddenly you're desperate to have me living in your house. What do you want from me?
I want you to have not fucking told Snape.
Sirius looks like he's just been hit, anger fleeing his face in that familiar lost look back in place. The one that's been a permanent fixture all summer.
I'm going to wait for you two at the bottom of the stairs.
Neither of them turn to watch as Euphemia slips out of the room.
I want you to not have done it. You think this has been fucking fun for any of us? You think I want to be mad at you? I hate it.
Sirius is watching James with wide eyes.
I don't know what else to do. I don't know how to forgive you, Sirius.
And now James is begging really. Begging Sirius to tell him how. How do we get past this? How do we go back? I don't want to be broken anymore.
I'm sorry.
It's all Sirius ever seems to say these days. James brings his hands up to his face and turns away, towards the window.
But I did it. I wish I hadn't. Give me a time turner. I'll go back. I'll change everything.
James shakes his head.
I want you to have not done it. I want you to be incapable of doing it.
I'm sorry.
I thought we were on the same page. I thought we were going to protect each other no matter what. Have each other's backs no matter what.
Christ, it sounds so stupid now that he says it out loud. So childish.
We are, James. I swear I never meant to hurt him. I would never hurt him. I wasn't thinking. I didn't. I was just... My head, I was all fucked up, and I saw Snape in his stupid, sneering face, and I acted. I didn't think. You know me. I never think.
The room is filled with ghosts. With what-ifs, and maybes, and should-haves. All of it stings. Their friendship, an open wound. Eventually James turns back around to face him. Sirius has stepped forward, face pale, hair mussed from running his hands through it. James knows he means it. Means all of it. Knows that he's sorry. When you're younger, it feels so much simpler. Someone apologizes and you accept. It's supposed to be enough. But it doesn't feel like enough anymore.
But you're supposed to think about us.
James watches Sirius flinch.
That's the thing I do all the time. You guys are all I think about. What I'm going to tell you. What would make you laugh? Where you are? What you're doing? If you wish I was there like I wish I was there. I do think about you.
Sirius is as close to sobbing as James has ever seen someone who isn't already crying.
It was one time. The one time I wasn't thinking about you, and I'm so fucking scared. So scared of what I did. That all it took was one moment and I hurt the most important people in my life. And the worst part is, I didn't even feel it.
Sirius squeezes his eyes shut, trying to pull his words together.
I knew that you were upset, that Peter was upset, that it wasn't funny. But I couldn't feel the wrongness of it. Not until I saw you crawling out of the tree, covered in blood. And then it was like something in me cracked open and all of a sudden it was all there.
There is a desperate look in Sirius's eyes when he opens them again.
I don't know what's wrong with me.
James is moving before he can think about it, pulling Sirius into his arms as he falls apart. It hurts. But then, James is used to that at this point. So he just holds Sirius tighter. He wonders how this is allowed to happen. How anyone ever let Sirius stay in that house so long. How they let Regulus stay there still. How can he be the only one who sees them?
Fuck.
Sirius pulls away and wipes his face on the inside of his shirt. James is reluctant to let him go.
Don't move out.
There is a confidence in James's voice that he doesn't feel about anything right now. Sirius looks tired.
I can't stay there like this, James. I can't handle us acting like we don't know each other. Like we hate each other. It's fucking killing me.
Me too.
James does his best to keep his voice under control. For the first time in a long time, Sirius looks hopeful.
Yeah?
James nods.
I don't hate you, Sirius. I never have.
Thank fuck for that.
James smiles back, even if it is a little shaky.
Don't move out. I'm not saying everything is fixed, but I don't want you to go. Can that be enough?
Sirius wipes his nose on his sleeve.
Yeah, that can be enough.
James sends Remus an owl as soon as they get home. Brief. To the point.
Moons, can we talk tonight? Fireplace. Midnight. James.
He doesn't want Sirius there for this. The two of them they're better. But they're fragile. They make awkward small talk on the way home, not really able to look at one another, but trying not to look away. It'll be easier, James thinks, after he talks to Remus. It'll feel less like a betrayal. He waits by the fireplace in his father's office, door closed, Mum and Sirius up in their bedrooms, McGonagall's letter clutched in his hand. The flames flicker a few times before Remus's face emerges.
Hey.
Hey, everything okay? Your letter seemed kind of urgent.
Oh, yeah, everything's okay.
James tries to swallow, but his throat is too tight.
Listen, I got my Hogwarts letter today.
Remus gives him a funny look.
Yeah, I figured. They usually send those out at the same time. What's up with you, James? You're acting like I'm Lily or something.
That brings a smirk to James's face.
You think I'm trying to seduce you, Lupin?
Remus arches his brow, impressively sassy even in the fireplace.
Are you?
Always.
The tension breaks. James can do this. He can. He just doesn't know how to start.
James?
Right, sorry. So, I got another letter with my school list.
Oh?
Yeah.
James nods, feeling the parchment in his hand like a hot coal.
Yeah, it's from McGonagall. She wants to know if we want to room with Sirius again, or if she should find us a new roommate.
He sees the surprise on Remus's face, and then sees him try to suppress it almost immediately.
Oh.
Yeah, that was how I felt too. Bit of a
gut punch.
Yeah.
They're both nodding at each other, neither of them sure where this goes next. James doesn't want to tell him about the conversation he had with Sirius. Not yet, anyway. Doesn't want him to feel pressured into anything because he thinks it's what James wants.
What are you going to tell her?
James almost laughs.
Whatever you tell me to.
James.
But James shakes his head, cutting Remus off.
You were fucked over here, Remus. The rest of us were just collateral damage. You decide what you need, what makes you feel comfortable. Whatever you want, I'll support it.
James can see Remus biting his lower lip, the nervous energy wafting off the fire like smoke.
Christ, it shouldn't be this hard. I don't know. Fuck it. Okay.
Okay?
Remus swipes a hand across his face.
Tell her it's okay. I'm not rooming with a stranger, that's ridiculous. The amount I'd have to hide every full moon? It was hard enough with Frank and we liked him.
Remus shakes his head.
We'll deal with Sirius. I don't know how, but we will. Besides, it would feel wrong having someone else in there, don't you think?
James nods, trying to contain his relief.
Yeah, I do.
For good or bad, he already knows all my secrets.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Oh, no, not really.
Remus gives James a sad smile.
But I'm not really sure about anything these days.
I know the feeling.
James feels his grip loosen on the letter in his hand.
Okay, well, I'll write it tonight.
Remus nods.
I should go. My mum won't sleep until she knows I'm in my room.
Right, okay. I'll come round tomorrow, yeah?
Sounds good. I think Pete's planning to come by too.
Brilliant. Mooney.
Yeah?
James takes a deep breath.
I have your back. Always. You know that, right?
Something flickers in Remus's eyes, but James isn't sure if it's really there, or if it's just the fire.
Yeah, James, I know. Me too. I have your back. I know I was a little harsh yesterday, but I'm here if you need anything. Okay?
James nods, smiling.
Good night, Moons.
Night, James.
The fireplace splutters, flames reaching out for a second, then receding back as the connection is severed. James sits back on his heels, trying to let go of some of the anxiety still clinging to his skin. It's okay. Everything went okay. Remus said yes. Sirius can come back. Nothing is fixed, of course, not completely, but at least it's a start. They're mending. He gets up, rounding his father's desk and pulling out a fresh piece of parchment. He scribbles McGonagall a note. Nothing fancy, but he wants to get this done now. When it's sealed and addressed, he goes into the back garden and whistles for Hoot. He comes almost instantly, happy to have a job. James hasn't had much for him to do this summer.
That's a boy.
James ties the letter to his leg and sends him off. He's almost instantly lost in the black night sky.
Okay.
James's hand is running through his hair.
Okay.
It's rubbish, trying to comfort yourself. Never works. Still, he tries to get himself to relax. Today was a good day. Hard and long and bloody exhausting. But good. He's only just come back inside when he hears the crack of someone apparating into the front hallway.
Bloody hell.
James knows it's his dad. There's no one else who's keyed into their wards. Well, except for Dumbledore and Moody. But that bloody hell was definitely his dad.
You're back late.
James stops at the top of the hall, his father looking up at the sound of his voice, face bloodied.
Dad?
Fleamont tries to smile and then winces.
Bad, huh? Haven't had the chance to look in the mirror yet.
And then Fleamont starts limping towards his office, as though showing up in the middle of the night beaten to a fucking pulp is nothing out of the ordinary.
What the hell happened? Are you okay?
James follows him into the office, watching as he throws his cloak on his desk, the shirt underneath dirty and blood-splattered. Fleamont opens the closet door and peers into the mirror hung up on the inside.
I don't want to wake your mother.
He pulls out his wand and starts casting healing charms. James watches as the skin on his face starts stitching itself back together, bruises fading.
Dad.
James still stands in the doorway.
What happened?
He can see that his dad is okay. He's standing right in front of him. So he doesn't know why he suddenly feels so afraid.
Well?
Fleamont is eyeing his face one more time before deciding it's good enough. He pulls away from the mirror and leans against the front of his desk, facing James.
I encountered a bit of a situation trying to leave work.
I can see that.
James fights between concerned and annoyed now. Fleamont offers him another small smile. They're really the only kind he has. Everything he expresses is tinged with a bit of self-conscious embarrassment. Nothing like the boisterous emotions of James's mum.
There have been attacks.
His father sags a little bit. Now that the blood is gone, James can clearly see the deep bags under his father's eyes, lines marking up his forehead and mouth in a way they never have before. For the first time in his life, James finds himself thinking that his father looks old.
3 in the last 2 weeks.
3?
James has been reading the paper every day and he hasn't seen a single bleeding thing about attacks. Fleamont nods.
All ministry employees, usually leaving or coming to work. Moody thinks it's a new kind of initiation.
Initiation for what?
His father sends him a look. Oh.
Death Eaters are attacking the ministry now.
His father does not seem nearly as concerned as James thinks he should be.
It's only a theory. No one's died yet. They don't seem to be very well organised. That's what makes us think they're not proper members.
James isn't sure if that's supposed to be comforting, but it isn't.
Why don't they have extra security then?
A rueful smile finds its way onto Fleamont's face.
There's some, but the minister doesn't want to allow Moody to post too many. Afraid if people start seeing hordes of Aurors marching around, they'll get the wrong idea.
Which is?
That we're in trouble.
James feels something squirm in the pit of his stomach.
Are we in trouble?
The good humour slowly drops from his father's face.
Yes.
Oh.
Which James realises is a stupid and inadequate response, but it's the only one he has.
I'm not trying to scare you, James, but I don't want to lie to you either.
Feeling slightly dazed, James shakes his head.
I'm not scared.
Well.
A sad smile finds its way onto his father's face.
Then you're a braver man than I am.
James doesn't believe that for a second.
Right. It's late.
His father pushes off the desk.
You should head up to bed before your mother comes down here and gives us both grief.
You aren't going to bed?
His father nods at the fireplace behind him.
I've got to make a call to Dumbledore. Let him know what's happened.
Right. Okay.
James is hesitant to move, but he can't think of any excuse to stay, so, reluctantly, he starts making his way towards the door.
James?
He turns back.
I don't think I've had the chance to tell you, but I'm really proud of how you've handled everything this past year at school.
James's brow draws together in confusion.
I know you and the Snape boy aren't exactly on the best of terms. But it was incredibly brave and decent what you did. Going after him. Saving him.
James isn't exactly sure what to say to that.
I didn't do it for him. I did it for Remus.
His father nods, a knowing look on his face.
You're a good friend.
James shrugs.
They're important to me.
Good.
His father moves slowly behind his desk.
Hold on to that. That feeling. Let it keep you together.
I intend to.
Lily lies on her bedroom floor, record player on in the background, music drifting over her. It's brutally hot. Too hot to move or think. Her fingers drag lazily through the carpet that covers every room in the house except the bathroom and the kitchen. Her father always used to talk about tearing it out, but he never got around to it. She's glad that he didn't. It feels like home now. After spending all year surrounded by stone, she comes back to soft floors and warm colours. Lily doesn't move, doesn't open her eyes. Maybe if she lies very, very still, they won't be able to find her. Barely 2 minutes later, the door to her room is being thrown open.
Christ, Lily, couldn't you hear me?
Lily cracks one eye open to peer up at the towering figure of her sister. Dark hair, still in curlers, the mint green nightgown she's had since she was 13 brushing against her knees.
No, sorry.
Lily doesn't bother to move. This, predictably, infuriates Petunia.
You said you would help.
Everything with her sister is a lightly veiled guilt trip. You said you would help. You owe me. Make up for it. For the magic. For not being here. You said you would help. Lily pulls herself upright and rests her arms on her knees.
What do you need?
Petunia is really rather pretty. Probably the prettier of the two of them. The problem is, she's always got this pinched look on her face. Sour and unhappy and constantly let down. It makes her unappealing to look at.
Food for my hen do. Nice food, though. Not just crisps from the grocery store.
Lily blinks up at her.
Nice food.
Petunia looks at Lily like she is the stupidest person she has ever met.
Cheeses and baguettes and charcuterie boards.
Charcuterie?
Gesundheit.
No, it's... Never mind. Yeah, okay. I can go get you some posh snacks. When do you need them by?
4.
Lily's eyes skate over the clock on her bedside table. It's only 10 in the morning. What all the yelling was about, she's no idea. As if snacks are going to take more than 6 hours to get. Even posh ones.
Also, pick us up some Prosecco.
Lily gives her a flat look.
I'm underage.
Her sister smiles unpleasantly.
And yet you still manage to get those dirty cigarettes you don't want Mum to see.
Lily rolls her eyes.
Yes, okay, I'll try. But if they don't take my fake, it's not my fault.
I'm sure you'll be fine. If anything goes wrong, you can just use your little stick and magic it all away.
That's not how it...
Lily, phone for you.
Oh, thank God.
Hey, wait!
But Lily slips past her.
Sorry, I gotta take this.
Lily! Ugh.
Lily practically crashes into her mum, who's leaving the living room at the exact moment that she makes it to the bottom of the stairs. She looks at Lily and then behind her at where Petunia still is.
I'll get her snacks, I promise.
Listen, I know she's being...
Mrs. Evans trails off but sends Lily a look that is clearly meant to say a crazy bitch, so Lily nods.
But she's just stressed. Vernon's sister is coming to the hen do and she wants to impress her.
Sure, Mum. I get it.
Lily doesn't point out that Petunia is always like this around her. Has been since she was 11 years old. Her mum smiles a little sadly.
You're a good girl, Lily.
Lily tries not to cringe.
Thanks, Mum. I better.
She nods towards the telephone in the living room.
Oh yeah, of course, go on.
Lily does, enthusiastically, not even bothering to ask who it is. Any conversation is better than whatever was happening up in her bedroom.
Hello?
Lily throws herself into the armchair by the phone.
Jesus, where were you coming from? Alaska? We've been waiting on the line for ages.
Lily smiles at the sound of Mary's voice.
Wait.
Oh yeah, Ma's here, so if you have anything nasty to say about her, it'll have to wait until later. Oh my God, Mary.
Lily can practically hear Marlene rolling her eyes over the phone.
Hey, Lily.
How's it going? How's home?
Lily grimaces, glad they can't see. She does her best not to let it get to her, and by it she very much means her sister. With Petunia, it's easier to pretend it's all a joke, the glaring and passive-aggressive comments. Some ridiculous sketch on a comedy programme. Better to laugh than to yell and fight.
Hello? After Lily?
Lily shakes herself awake.
Hi, sorry. Home is fine.
Sister been a nightmare then? Jesus, Mary. Don't make me muzzle you. Promises.
Lily's hand comes to her mouth to try and catch the sound. Laughter is an odd sound in this house without her father. It's not that they're unhappy, not exactly. Or Lily isn't. She's not so sure about her mum and sister.
It is your sister though, isn't it?
Mary is never one to demur.
Yeah.
Full bridezilla.
You could certainly say that.
Have you got your bridesmaid dress yet?
Yes.
Oh no. Just how horrible is it?
Well, it's Dusty Rose.
No!
Lily has to pull the phone away from her ear.
No, it isn't. She wouldn't. Oh, and with your hair? Pink? Lily?
Yup. With sleeves the size of my head and ruffles as far as the eye can see.
Lily's only a bridesmaid in the first place because their mother made Petunia include her. While Lily appreciates the gesture, she really, really wishes she hadn't. It's been nothing but a misery. And besides, Lily would rather just sit anonymously in the crowd, ignored, invisible, or not go at all.
Anyway, how are you two? I expect you didn't call just to gag over my sister's wedding.
No, we most certainly did not. We called to inform you of the party you will be attending on Friday. She means we called to ask you. Asking implies a choice. There's no choice here.
Who's going to be there?
Lily interrupts their bickering before they can really get on a roll. There's a pause, which means that Marlene and Mary are doing that thing where they talk with their eyes.
Why? Who do you want to be there?
Lily rolls her eyes.
No one.
Uh-huh.
Okay, Marlene, who is going to be there?
Mary, she deserves to know who's coming. Mary, just give me the fucking phone. Thank you very much. Sorry, Lily. The whole Quidditch team.
Oh, Alice and Frank too. I haven't seen them in ages.
I know, right? Aura training's a bitch, but yeah, they said they'd be there. Dorcas too. Lucy and Tanner from herbology. That Pratt Diggory, because Mary has decided she wants to shag him.
Lily wrinkles her nose.
Ew, Diggory. Why?
Tell me about it. But she said something about his giant. Okay, why don't you just cut to the chase and tell her about the people she really cares about, huh?
There aren't people I really care about.
Lily has a feeling it's a losing battle.
James, Remus, and Peter are coming too.
There may be, possibly, potentially, in a theoretical situation that one could think up, a small skip in her pulse. But Lily doesn't let herself consider it. And she certainly doesn't intend to admit it to Mary, who for some reason has decided that now that she and James don't hate each other, they are suddenly going to fall in love.
No serious?
I invited him, but things are apparently still tense between that lot. James said he didn't have a problem with him coming, but Sirius seems to think it'll be awkward.
Did you ask Remus?
Remus? Why?
Well, it's him and Sirius who are fighting, I think. James and Peter have just taken Remus aside.
What? How do you know that?
Lily shrugs even though they can't see her.
James told me. Well, basically told me anyway.
Oh, he did he?
Lily can practically hear Mary's eyebrows waggling on the other end of the phone.
Down girl.
I'm just saying, you would make a hot couple.
Oh, well, with that sound logic.
Sorry, but what did he do? Serious, I mean. I spent, all of the end of the last year trying to figure out what could have happened. I mean, for James to turn on Sirius. Those two are I don't know. Brothers? Not that Sirius has terribly good luck with those, does he?
Wow, Mary, that was particularly mean, even for you.
Please tell me you didn't say that to him when you talked. You two have no faith in me. Of course I didn't. But it doesn't mean I'm not right.
Neither of them want to touch that.
I don't know what he did, James didn't say. Neither did Remus.
Damn. I mean, obviously it's their business and everything, but like...
I want to know too.
Honestly, you two, I know what happened.
Lily sits bolt upright in her chair.
What do you mean, you know?
Yeah, what the hell, MacDonald?
Lily can't see Mary, but she can just picture her, reclining slightly, smug look on her face while she shrugs off their indignation. Sorry it slipped my mind smile pulling at her mouth.
Like you said, it's their business.
But you're going to tell us, right?
I could, I suppose.
For a solid 5 seconds, Lily truly does think about murdering her.
You don't really know. If you did, half of the school would have heard by now. Ow, don't start fighting with me, MacDonald. I have a seeker's reflexes.
Didn't manage to dodge that hit.
I wasn't ready.
I see. So you have a seeker's reflexes as long as someone notifies you in advance then.
When did you become such a fucking smartass?
Mary, do you know or not?
I have a theory.
That is not the same.
Oh well, sue me. It's more than either of you have.
Go on then. What's your theory?
Simple.
Lily doesn't think that is a promising start because whatever is going on between those boys, it certainly doesn't seem simple.
Sirius made a move on Remus.
Lily is so unprepared for that for a second her brain doesn't process it. Made Remus move what? Moved what on Remus? Moved Remus where? Her brain cycles through every combination of those words and their possible meanings before finally landing on what, of course, Mary is saying.
Oh.
It seems Marlene is similarly stunned because she doesn't have much more to add.
I expect the other 3 lads freaked out on him, stopped feeling comfortable sharing a room with him, changing in front of him.
No, they wouldn't do that.
Boys are assholes about that kind of thing. You saw how they got at Christmas with Spin the Bottle.
Lily grimaces. She did, in fact, see that.
McGonagall would never agree to kick him out of the dorm or off the Quidditch team for that. No way.
Why? Because she's so progressive? And besides, anyone else notice that they moved him into a single room? Awfully strange punishment, don't you think? Unless the whole point was to keep him away from other boys.
Stop it.
I'm not agreeing with it. I think it's horrid. I love Sirius, you know I do. I just also think it makes sense. People are horrid.
James would never let that happen.
I told you. Blokes are, I don't know, they're more sensitive about that sort of thing.
No, not James.
I agree with Marlene.
Lily starts to feel slightly dazed by the whole situation.
God, I forgot I was talking to James Potter's bloody fan club. Look, ladies, I'm sorry to break it to you, but he's a pig-headed jock, just like the rest of them.
Lily is shaking her head even before she speaks.
No, not about Sirius. He'd die for him.
She doesn't know why she says it, but she knows it's true.
The way he was talking, I don't think this could be it. I don't think Remus would react this way either. Besides, you're forgetting about Severus.
Oh yeah.
What does Snape have to do with this?
You remember, Mary. He was in the hospital ring, and then he had detentions with Sirius for the rest of the year. I keep forgetting about him. God, what a weird situation.
Could be unrelated.
That would be quite the coincidence. What even makes you think Sirius would be interested in Remus in that way? Bit out of left field, that.
There's a pause. Too long, really. And Lily finds herself suddenly frustrated with the phone because she really wants to see what Mary's face is doing right now.
He told me.
He told you?
What? Really?
Lily didn't see that coming.
Well, I mean, not exactly. He just sort of... He said his name once, while we were hooking up.
Lily's eyes go so wide she's afraid they're going to fall right out of her head.
What the fuck?
What the fuck?
Oh, you two are so dramatic.
Is that why you two stopped seeing each other?
Not exactly, but it certainly made things a bit awkward from then on. So, I told him I was interested in Connor Davis. That way he wouldn't have to feel bad about it.
Wow. That was very decent of you, Mary.
Some might even say nice.
I can be nice.
Yeah, of course you can.
I still don't think that's what caused the Marauders to...
break up?
Yeah.
Lily runs a hand through her hair, turning to the window. She can see Remus that day in the courtyard. The sad look in his eyes, the way he was avoiding everyone. Mary's theory just doesn't feel right, somehow.
Well, you two can believe whatever you like. Now, back to the party. We're thinking big here, Evans. An epic end of summer bash.
No, don't say that. It's not the end of the summer yet.
Come now, darling. Everything good must come to a close.
Lily watches as the cars drive along the street, sun bright outside. This summer truly has been beautiful. If only it had been filled with less wedding madness, she might have actually enjoyed it.
No, no way. You're not allowed to make the punch again.
And why not?
Because last time you nearly killed Dorcas.
Lily used to love summer. But then, she supposes most kids do. Those days when all you do is run around outside until the sun sets, coming back dirty and tired, with scuffed knees and stories to tell. She used to go monster hunting with Severus, and then come back and tell her father all about it. Severus loved that stuff. Once he made a book about it, all the monsters they caught. Lily still has it somewhere.
Lily, do you think you could pick that stuff up?
When Lily first sees him, she thinks she's making it up. She'd just been thinking about him after all. Maybe it's a trick of the light, of her memories.
Lily?
But no. She blinks, wiping a hand across her eyes. And still he's there. Not a little kid anymore, of course. Not as interested in hunting monsters as joining them.
Sorry, I have to go.
He's standing across the street, hair longer than it was the last time she saw him. He always looks younger in muggle clothes, softer. He looks like he's still mine, her traitorous mind supplies. She hasn't seen him all summer. She thought they'd come to some sort of agreement.
Mum?
Lily shoves on her shoes.
I'm heading out.
Don't forget to buy my...
Lily slams the door shut on her sister's voice, watching the boy across the street stand up straighter as she walks towards him, hands already shaking. She stops a few feet away on the pavement.
Can I help you?
Severus winces, looking down so that his hair falls forward, nearly swallowing him completely.
I was hoping we could talk.
It's harder here, in the place where they met, where they grew up together, away from castles and magic and other people. It's harder to hate him.
You were hoping we could talk. About what exactly?
His eyes dart up off the pavement to meet hers, but only for a moment.
Lily.
Not Mudblood. Why so formal all of a sudden, Severus? Or, I suppose now that no one's around, it's all right for me to have a name.
She can already feel the tears trying to weasel their way up her throat. But she has no intention of crying. Not again. Not over this. She's tired, and it's pointless.
I'm sorry. I told you. I didn't mean to say it. I was just...
vulnerable. I understand how it happened, Sev, but it came to you so fucking easily. So quickly. Like it didn't matter. Tell me, if it had been Mary standing there instead of me, would you still have come slinking up to the Gryffindor common room to apologise?
It never would have been MacDonald.
Oh, that's not the point, Sev.
Do you know why it never would have been her?
He doesn't get it. On his warpath, like always. There had been a time when he had been an incredible listener, but these days she feels like he barely even hears her.
Because she's one of their bloody groupies.
Christ!
She throws her arms up in frustration.
This is so much more important than your petty bullshit with the Marauders.
This is all about them, and you used to be able to see it.
He's lifted his head now, hair falling away from his eyes as they lock onto hers.
See what, Severus?
What a bunch of privileged, narcissistic assholes they are. It would have made you furious what Potter did.
It did!
He takes a step back. Lily is sure she's going to be getting complaints from the neighbours in a few minutes, but she can't bring herself to care.
I stood up for you. I held my wand to his head, and you called me a mudblood.
Her chest is heaving.
Years, Sev. Years I spent defending you to everyone, and then, in front of the entire school, you showed them what an absolute fucking idiot I've been.
Lily.
To think that you were different.
Lily, please.
To believe that you were my friend. That you cared about me.
I do care about you.
The expression he usually wears around school, that empty mask, disappears when they're together. She used to think this was the real him, the person he was with her. Now she's not so sure.
The thing is, Severus, you don't care about me.
Christ, it hurts. Like pouring salt in an open wound.
You care about you.
He opens and closes his mouth, like he can't figure out what to say. She doesn't blame him. I mean, what's left at this point?
We just keep going in circles. So just go away, okay? We've dragged this out enough.
She doesn't wait for him to respond, turning on her heel and starting back towards the house.
Lily, oh, come on. Lily, please. Please, I'm trying here.
Trying?
She stops on her doorstep.
Trying to what? What are you even doing here, Sev? Surely this all makes you sick.
She gestures to the building behind her.
Me and my muggle home, and my muggle mum and my muggle sister. Surely it all disgusts you.
You know it doesn't.
How?
They're too close to the house now, and the last thing she needs is her mother or sister coming out here to see what's going on.
How would I know that? You do realise that it's not just that your friends don't like me, right? They want me dead, Sev.
It's all so absurd. All so terrible.
Nothing is going to happen to you.
He steps forward now, trying to close the space between them, which is the last thing she needs.
I'll keep you safe. I'll protect you. Always. Always, Lily.
There is something heartbreaking about it all. The swelling in his eyes, the sincerity, the way he reaches his hand out. She doesn't know how they got here, but she can't help feeling that it was all supposed to be different, that they were supposed to grow old together. She blames him for that, for breaking them, because for a while, they really were something special.
To what end, Sev? Until I'm the last mudblood on the planet.
Stop using that word.
I'll use it if I fucking want to. You can't protect me. And if you really believe in all of this, in the Death Eaters, and the violence, and the great chain of magical beings, then I can't figure out why you'd even want to.
He used to be shorter than her, but he's not anymore. She always forgets that until moments like this, when all of a sudden she realizes he's looking down at her, taking up too much space in her chest.
I want to.
Suddenly goosebumps pebble her skin.
Because I love you.
It's a reflex, really. She's barely thinking when she pulls her arm back and punches him right in the stomach. He doubles over immediately, clutching at his middle like he's afraid he's going to split in half.
Fuck you. Stay the hell away from me.
He looks like he's about to say something, but she's not interested, slamming the door shut behind her and running up the stairs with her shoes still on.
Lily?
Lily? Lily doesn't answer her mother and sister and doesn't turn around, shutting the door to her bedroom and collapsing against it. And oh, hello. Here they are. Tears stream down her face as she chokes into her hand, trying not to make too much noise. Somehow she ends up on the ground, knees pulled into her chest, forehead resting on top of them. They've done this so many times by now, her and Sev. She doesn't know why it still feels like this, like cutting something out of herself.
I love you.
How dare he? How fucking dare he? After everything, after years.
I love you.
She lifts her head like that'll help her breathe, sobs taking up all the space in her chest, leaving no room for air.
I love you.
It hurts because he does, because she wants him too, because she waited so long to hear him say it. So many nights when they got quiet, and their hands got close, and their noses almost touched. It hurts because it's part of the reason she'd held on to him for so long. Held on to this. Because she knew deep down everything she felt. Everything he felt. It hurts because she understands now that it isn't enough. Loving someone. It doesn't save you. Not in the end. Petunia's hen do is about as awful as one would expect. Pink and white decorations are strewn about the living room, which slowly fills with women who are on ridiculous diets and therefore do not eat fancy cheeses and baguettes. Fine, Lily thinks. More for me. Admittedly, the cheese does help make her a little less miserable. Well, the cheese and the wine.
You know,
A girl with a garish shade of orange lipstick comes up to her on one of her many trips to the food table.
I didn't even know Petunia had a sister. Isn't that funny?
Lily looks at her flatly.
Hilarious. Baguette?
The woman looks a little startled.
No, I'm not eating carbs.
Lily isn't sure if she smiles or grimaces. She sits in the corner with her plate of food and watches her sister make small talk and receive gifts and play games like Purse Scavenger Hunt and Pin the Veil on the Bride. Lily had always been under the impression that hen do's were meant to be a bit more wild than this, but then she supposes she isn't surprised. Petunia doesn't do wild, not anymore. She does tight and ordered and stiff. Their grandmother, before she passed, had a case of little porcelain figurines, beautiful cherub-looking things. Some days, Lily thinks that's Petunia's aspiration in life, to be a porcelain figure in a glass case.
Lily?
Petunia hovers over her chair. The heels she insisted Lily wear, even though they are in their own house, have been left in a heap on the carpet, her legs tucked up under her skirt.
Refill the refreshments, please.
Lily's brow arches. After all, she's the only one who's been eating the refreshments. She can't really see the point in...
Now?
Just like that, Petunia floats away. Rolling her eyes, Lily heads towards the kitchen to get the rest of the food, manoeuvring her way through the sea of women who are all dressed up far too much to just be puttering around their living room.
She's so selfish. Spends all her time at that posh boarding school. Barely ever comes home. Petunia has to manage everything.
The sound of voices causes Lily to stop in the hallway, hidden from the people talking in the kitchen.
How can they even afford it? I mean, I was under the impression that their mother hasn't much money.
They can't, but apparently she won't hear of going anywhere else. Like I said, selfish. Did you know that she didn't even come home for their father's funeral?
Lily takes a step back, feeling as though she's just been hit, her face burning. The two women are still talking, but she can't hear anything. The buzzing in her ears growing too loud. She starts moving again. She needs to get out of here. She needs to breathe. Without thinking, she pushes her way through the house, sliding out the back door and into the garden. The fresh air feels good on her hot skin, pulse going a mile a minute as she presses her back against the house and inhales, eyes falling closed. She'd only been 12 when her father died. She would have come home. She would have been here, if she could have been. But it had happened so suddenly. A car accident. No warning. No preparation. There are no telephones at Hogwarts. If her mother was a witch, she could have used the flu. But, of course, she isn't. Lily hadn't had an owl then, because her mother didn't know where they would keep it during the summer, and honestly they couldn't afford it. Which meant that the only way to contact her was through the Muggle post. Letters addressed to Hogwarts do make it there, but it takes time. More time than an owl. So by the time Lily found out about her father's death, by the time all the arrangements were made for her to be able to flew her mum, to speak with her, a week had passed. Her father was buried. The funeral over. Even now, Lily feels the ache of that pain cut through her. How fucking devastated she had been. How lonely. Sometimes being Muggle-born feels like floating, with no anchor, no port. She belongs nowhere. In the magic world, she's a person without a history. Magical families have legacies and friendships that stretch back millennia. They know who their great-great-great-grandfathers were. Sometimes they've even spoken to them if they have portraits. Lily has none of that. No link to the magical world, no familiar faces. She's on her own. In the Muggle world, she finds it hard to relate to people. There's a whole part of reality that they know nothing about. A whole part of her that they know nothing about. And she's never sure how to bridge that gap. She startles at the sound of the screen door opening, looking over to find her sister stepping out into the yard. Petunia walks forward, not seeing Lily yet, and takes in a deep breath, letting her face tilt up towards the sky on the exhale. After a few seconds, she reaches into the pocket of her skirt and pulls out a packet of cigarettes.
And after all the shit you've given me for smoking?
Petunia whips around, eyes narrowing as she picks Lily out of the dark.
What are you doing out here?
What are you doing out here?
Even in the dark, she can see her sister roll her eyes.
Whatever.
Petunia turns back around, looking out over the garden as she brings the cigarette to her mouth. The burning tip, the brightest thing in the yard. Lily knows the smart thing for her to do would be to go inside. Nothing good ever comes from the two of them being left alone together. But she's had just enough wine to feel reckless.
Why are you doing this?
Doing what?
Her sister doesn't turn around.
This?
Lily gestures at the house, at the dismal party going on inside.
Getting married? You're barely out of school. You have so much time. And Vernon.
I'd be careful if I were you.
He's not a match for you.
Petunia tilts her head back and blows smoke up into the sky, catching the moonlight.
No, he isn't.
Well, Lily thinks, at least we can agree on that.
Does he just look right then? Is that it? Very domestic, very proper, straight-laced.
Something like that.
Dad would hate him.
Which is the wrong thing to say on every level. But the wine is still thrumming through her, and so is the pain from the conversation she overheard in the kitchen. Petunia finally turns around.
Don't you talk to me about Dad.
I'll talk about whatever I want.
You weren't here.
That's not my fault.
Lily steps forward now, off of the wall, into her sister's space, trying to restrain her childish desire to kick and scream and throw a temper tantrum. Not my fault. Not my fault. Not my fault.
It is your fault.
Petunia jabs her cigarette at her.
You chose that school.
Lily blinks, slightly taken off guard.
What?
You could have stayed here. You could have stayed with us. But you chose to go off and leave us behind. So you weren't here. Not when the police showed up. Not when we had to identify the body. Not when we buried him.
Chills run up Lily's spine and she does her best not to flinch.
I was the one who had to plan the funeral.
You had Mum. I had no one. I was alone.
Mum was bloody catatonic. I had to force her to get out of bed, to eat, to shower. I started sleeping in her room because I was afraid to leave her alone, afraid she was going to.
Lily can see Petunia's hand shaking as she takes another drag from her cigarette, turning away again. Lily doesn't know what to do with any of this. Her chest's a storm of feelings she can't work through.
Why didn't you tell me?
Petunia sends her a sharp look, eyes bright under the stars.
You weren't here. So yes, Vernon is boring and predictable. But at least I will always know where he is and when he's coming home, and I won't have to worry about him running off places I can't follow or getting drunk and trying to fucking drive himself home.
Lily feels her chest grow tight, feels herself struggle to breathe. They never talk about that part. The part where their father was twice over the legal limit. The part where it was his fault.
Maybe Dad would have hated him.
Petunia eventually throws her cigarette on the ground and turns back towards the house.
But to be perfectly honest, I couldn't care less about that man's opinion.
Petunia's eyes meet Lily's, running her up and down, a familiar look of disgust on her face.
You're just like him, you know.
And with that, she goes back inside. Mary calls the next day, asking Lily to pick up some last-minute things for the party, and she can't say yes fast enough. Anything to get out of the house. Anything to get away from her sister. Technically, she doesn't need to go to Diagon Alley to get the things Mary asked for, but the truth is, she misses magic. Desperately. So she takes the train into London and then walks to the Leaky Cauldron, getting butterflies in her stomach as the familiar brick wall dissolves in front of her, revealing the bustling, wizarding street on the other side. She feels instantly as though a weight has been lifted off of her. Her eyes bounce everywhere, sucking all of it in, feeling her own magic humming below her skin, desperate to get free. Mary says she can never decide which she likes better, the Muggle world or the wizarding one. Lily doesn't have that problem. For all its faults, she loves magic. Loves it to bits. She gets some sweets for tomorrow, even though she can already see Mary rolling her eyes. We're not 6, Lily, she'll say. Personally, Lily takes great offence at the idea that only 6-year-olds are allowed to get excited about candy. She also gets butterbeer and ice cream from Florian's. That's just for her. And ice cream from Florian's. That's just for her. And is debating going into the bookshop when she hears her name called out behind her.
Lily Evans, as I live and breathe.
Sirius Black is sauntering towards her through the crowd, leather jacket over his tight black t-shirt and jeans. She smiles because it just feels so right. Like, yes. Of course this is how he dresses outside of school.
Fancy seeing you here.
He gives her a one-armed hug that she can only lean into because of the aforementioned bags and ice cream.
Ah.
Sirius scans the display window she'd been admiring.
Last minute school shopping?
She shakes her head.
Actually, I was thinking of just going in for fun.
Of course you were.
Sirius shakes his head.
Wasting your last few precious days of freedom reading? Doesn't surprise me at all.
Lily rolls her eyes.
Oh, please. You're basically top of our year.
So you'll have to excuse me if I don't buy the whole reading is lame routine.
Sirius shoots her a wolfish grin.
You got me.
He leans his head a little closer to hers.
But don't tell anyone though, okay? I've got a reputation to uphold.
Scout's honor.
His eyebrows draw together in confusion.
Scouts?
Lily smiles a little.
Never mind. Muggle thing.
Huh.
Sirius nods thoughtfully before his eyes drop down to the bags in her hands.
What you got there?
It takes Lily a minute to answer because she's just shoved the rest of her ice cream cone in her mouth.
Party surprise.
Sirius gives her a bemused sort of smile.
You know, you're adorable when you're being gross.
She swallows, the back of her hand coming to her mouth, trying to hold some of the laughter back.
That might be my favourite compliment. Or insult? I'm not sure which, honestly.
Compliment. Definitely a compliment. So you're throwing a party then?
What? Oh, no.
She holds up the bags.
These are for Mary's thing tomorrow.
Ah.
She sees just the slightest dimming of his eyes and feels her heart give a pull.
She said you didn't think you should come?
Sirius shrugs in an overly casual gesture, hands shoving themselves into his pockets.
Well, you know.
He looks back at the shop window.
Things are still tense between you lot, then. I would have thought, what with you living at James's house?
Yes, that has been a little tricky. Things with James are actually alright, I think.
Sirius's face scrunches up like he's trying to work out something complicated.
We're not fighting anymore, but we're not normal.
Thus why you're here alone?
Yeah.
He smiles dryly.
That's why I'm here alone.
There's a pause. Sirius still looking very resolutely at the book display, and Lily looking at him.
If you and James are better, then I can't imagine he would mind you coming to the party.
Sirius grimaces.
It's not him I'm worried about.
Ah.
She tries not to think about what Mary said the other day, because really she shouldn't know any of it anyway, and besides, she doesn't believe it. Doesn't believe Remus would cut him off just for...
That's where they are now.
Lily gets the sense that he hasn't had many people to talk to this summer.
Remus's. You know, I've never been to his house before. Best mates 5 years, and I've never been to his house. James has. I mean, he's been loads, but even before. It didn't really bother me then, but now. Now I think that maybe it's because Remus always knew. Deep down.
Knew what?
That he couldn't trust me.
It hurts, the way he says it. So strange to see Sirius Black anything but cocky and carefree. She finds herself reaching out and squeezing his arm.
I don't believe that.
It's not a casual thing for him, having people at his house, meeting his parents. He guards those parts of himself, keeps them safe, shares them with the people he believes in most. I guess I was never one of them. He's always been a good judge of character, our Mooney.
Serious?
Lily ducks her head, trying to get him to meet her eye again. Eventually it works.
People don't get upset, don't get hurt, by just having their suspicions confirmed. He did trust you. And maybe whatever you did broke that. But broken things can be fixed.
Sirius looks about as earnest as she's ever seen him.
Not all.
She thinks of Petunia, standing in the garden that night, her voice breaking.
You weren't here. It is your fault.
Lily shakes her head, trying to shut those thoughts off.
Come to the party.
Sirius looks at her skeptically, but Lily doubles down.
Come to the party, Sirius. You know you do have other friends besides those three.
And that, finally, brings the light back to his face.
Not so long ago, you would have stuck a nail in your eye before admitting to being my friend.
You're being dramatic.
He gives her a pointed look.
Oh, all right. Maybe in first and second year.
The look continues.
And third year. But you were definitely growing on me by fourth year.
I am an acquired taste.
Like caviar.
He taps the tip of his nose like they're in cahoots.
Like caviar.
She smiles.
Come to the party, Sirius. You'll all have to be together in a week when we go back to school anyways.
He continues to look unconvinced.
I'll think about it.
Thinking doesn't strike me as one of your strong suits.
Oh, you have no idea.
The sun has started getting heavier in the sky, hanging low and threatening to sink below the horizon. The crowds on the street have thinned, but only slightly. It's summer, so it's never completely empty. People sitting outside on patios and inside at candlelit tables.
Hey,
Sirius jabs her with his elbow.
you got any plans tonight, Evans?
Christ, do you sharpen your elbows or something?
She rubs her side.
And no, not really. Why?
Let's get dinner. The leaky. My treat.
You asking me on a date, Black?
Gingers aren't really my type.
Oi!
Okay, first off,
Annoyingly, he dodges her fist.
I share a dorm room with 3 marauders. If you want to hit me, you're gonna have to be faster than that.
She glares at him.
Secondly, are you saying you want to be my type?
He raises his eyebrows at her suggestively.
Ew. No.
He swings his arm around her shoulders.
Glad we're on the same page, Freckles. Now, come on, let me buy you dinner. I'm rich now, did you know?
Just now.
She allows herself to be dragged down the street.
I thought you were always rich. I thought being rich was like 85% of your personality.
Nah, my family was rich. But now I, personally, Sirius Black III, am rich.
The third? Really? There are 3 of you?
Well, not currently.
In that case, I hope you know I'm getting the most expensive thing on the menu.
Sirius grins.
I'd expect nothing less.
The next day, Lily gets to Mary's house early to help set up. They mix drinks and listen to music and get dressed. Getting ready is honestly Lily's favourite part of going out. She likes the ritual of it, the easiness. Just the 3 of them giggling and dancing like goofs, not trying to impress anyone.
Well, well, look at you.
Mary walks out of the bathroom in a mini dress that on anyone else would be trying too hard, but on Mary is absolutely divine.
Thank you, thank you.
Mary gives a little bow. Marlene walks in with the punch bowl, setting it down on the table they've set up in the living room. Mary's parents are on vacation with her little sisters, and her brother is away at uni, so they have the place to themselves. The one downside being that there's no flu, so everyone will have to get there the Muggle way. Well, except for Alice and Frank, who can apparate. Lily flips the record, turning the volume up.
God, I love this song.
You say that about every song.
That earns Mary a rude hand gesture from Lily that makes Marlene laugh.
Who's ready to party, bitches?
I think Alice might be here.
The short, dark-haired girl bursts into the living room, a bottle in each hand.
What an entrance, Pruitt.
Mary pulls the older girl into a hug as Frank rounds the corner significantly more quietly.
Hey, Captain.
Marlene grins.
Not anymore, I'm not.
Frank rubs the back of his neck. Alice moves on to hug Marlene, dropping her bottles off on the table before making her way to Lily.
Hey, babes.
Alice pulls Lily into a quick embrace.
Haven't seen you in ages.
You've been busy.
Ugh, haven't I ever?
Lily opens her mouth to ask more, but Mary's voice cuts across the room, eyes on Frank.
So, who did get the badge of honour in the end, since I noticed you made the grave mistake of not naming me as your successor?
Mary's leaning against the wall, hip cocked, eyes glittering in that way they do where you can't tell if she's flirting with you or threatening you.
That would be Potter.
Oh, bloody knew it. He's going to be insufferable.
Insufferable? He's going to be a monster. Watch, I bet the little Quidditch freak makes her start practice at 5 in the morning.
You guys aren't giving him enough credit. I think he'll do a really good job at it, honestly.
Mary rolls her eyes.
Please. That's just because you're in love with him.
I'm in love with Alice, thank you very much.
Yes, dear, but you do get a bit of a glazed look in your eyes when you watch James fly.
They do not.
Frank just looks so precious, blushing and spluttering. Alice links her arm through Lily's, pulling her in close as though the whole room can't still hear what she's saying.
He thinks I don't know about his little crushes, but I do.
Oh, for Merlin's sake.
Frank passes a hand over his flushed face.
I need a drink.
Right here, Frankie boy.
Marlene grins from the table, lifting her own cup.
What do you want?
Something strong?
That'll be Mary's punch, then.
Frank makes a slightly queasy expression.
Maybe not that strong.
Aw, big tough Aura can't handle a little punch.
The teasing does not appear to faze Frank, who starts pouring himself a glass of fire whiskey and apple juice.
Not if you've had anything to do with it.
Alice and Lily meander over to the others, getting their own drinks.
Ooh, we should toast.
Mary holds up her cup. Lily arches her brow.
Should we?
To what?
I don't know, to us?
To us. Not a very inspiring toast, Mary.
I still don't understand why we're toasting at all.
Mary rolls her eyes at the both of them.
Fine. To being young and beautiful and hooking up with Amos Diggory tonight.
Yeah.
Lily wrinkles her nose.
I'm not toasting to that.
I'm also not toasting to that.
Frank looks thoroughly disturbed.
Oh, Jesus, you lot are so high maintenance.
Mary shakes out her shoulders and tries again.
To win in the Quidditch Cup this year.
Hear, hear.
Frank and Marlene immediately raise their glasses, and with such enthusiasm that some of the liquid rains down on the table.
Better than Amos Diggory, I guess.
Lily tries to hide her smile at Marlene's affronted look, all of them clinking their glasses together. People start arriving quickly after that, Mary's house filling up with a surprising number of strangers. Lily had assumed that she would know most of the people coming, but she seems to have miscalculated Mary's popularity. A rookie move. The woman in question is nowhere to be found. She had been draping herself over Amos's lap on the sofa not 10 minutes ago, but now Lily can't find the couple anywhere. Not that she's really looking. That's one thing she absolutely does not need to walk in on. It's hot. Too hot, really. Even with all the windows and doors open. Lily sticks mostly to the wall. Something about standing in the open always makes her feel awkward, and suddenly she'll forget what she's supposed to do with her arms and legs. At least when there's a wall, she has a prop to work with.
We have got to stop meeting like this.
Lily turns to find Sirius leaning next to her. His hair is pulled back tonight, likely because of the heat. It ought to look ridiculous, but as with everything, it kind of suits him.
You came?
Ah, well, after you practically begged me to...
Excuse me, I don't remember any begging.
Sirius cocks his eyebrow.
Really? I could have sworn there was begging. Then again, maybe that was the dream I had last night. Except in that, you weren't wearing any...
Christ, Sirius!
Lily punches his arm, and this time he actually stands still.
You are unbelievable, you know that? I thought gingers weren't your type.
Meh, depends on the day, really.
Incorrigible.
So I've been told.
She shakes her head, smiling despite herself as she looks back out at the party. She can see Remus and Peter now, standing on the other side of the room with Frank and some 7th-year boy Lily barely recognises. She turns back to Sirius and finds him staring in the same direction.
Have you talked to them?
Sirius shakes his head, not dropping his gaze.
They know you're here?
I told James to check with Remus, see if it was okay.
Well, that's encouraging. I'm assuming he didn't say no.
No, he didn't say no. But you've met him. He never would, even if he wanted to.
Lily isn't sure if that's actually true, but then she wonders if maybe it's just that Remus would never say no to Sirius.
Are you going to talk to them?
Sirius grimaces, finally turning back to her.
I don't think that'd be a good idea. Peter'd probably talk back, but he'd be stressed out the whole time.
And Remus?
Christ. I don't know.
Sirius is looking at him again, like he can't help it, and Lily feels her heart ache for him a little. He really does look heartbroken. Fuck, she thinks. Maybe Mary was right. She opens her mouth to speak, but before she can...
Sirius!
They both turn to look as Alice hops up and down, trying to be seen over the tops of people's shoulders.
Get your cute ass over here!
Sirius grins.
How gone is she?
Give her a break. It's her first day off in months.
That aura training's really something, huh?
Who would have thought?
Sirius!
Yes, darling, I'm coming.
He attempts to forge a path through the crowd. Sirius looks back at Lily over his shoulder.
Coming?
She waves him off.
You go. I think I need to step out for a minute. Get some fresh air.
Alright. I'll find you later, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
Sirius is promptly swallowed by the wall of bodies in front of them. And when Lily's eyes trail back over to the other side of the room, she finds Remus watching Sirius. Christ, she thinks. What a mess. Lily does eventually manage to make it out into the back garden, sweat suddenly cold on her skin as the night air brushes against her. There's 1 or 2 people she doesn't know standing by the house, so she decides to venture further out into the garden. It's dark, but the stars are bright tonight, brighter than they've been all summer, so Lily doesn't mind. It's because of the lack of a light that it takes her so long to notice him. James Potter, lying on the grass, looking up at the sky. She freezes for a moment, just staring at him, wondering if she should turn back. Surely she's had enough of the marauders for one night, but her traitorous feet don't start towards the house again. Instead, they make a beeline straight for him.
Hey!
Lily nearly makes a U-turn right back around because what is she even doing? It's not like she has anything to say to him. James blinks up at her, eyes cloudy and a little bloodshot. Ah, she thinks. He's drunk.
Did you fall, or are you down there on purpose?
On purpose.
She nods, pausing for a moment before sitting down next to him, crossing her legs and looking up. She's always liked astronomy, even if it is a bit trickier than some of her other classes. There's something nice about the way it's always there, in the sky, no matter where you are. After a few seconds, James pushes himself up so that he's sitting, too, though he's a bit clumsy about it.
How long have you been here, Potter?
Dunno. Hour, maybe.
She quirks her brow.
Really been throwing them back, huh?
Mm-hmm.
His eyes are still on the sky.
Punch.
That checks out.
You ought to know better than to touch Mary's punch.
But James shakes his head.
Nah, this is good.
He closes his eyes for a minute.
This feels better. Even if the world is spinning a bit.
There's something sad in his voice that catches her off guard.
Feels better than what?
I miss.
Wow. You really are drunk.
James's eyes blink open again.
Yeah.
Lily wonders if she should leave him alone, but she can't quite seem to make herself move. Maybe she's drunker than she thought. Though to be honest, she feels almost painfully sober right now.
So, who is it then?
James blinks, looking over at her.
What?
Who is it you're out here missing?
He looks oddly panicked for a second.
I didn't say there was... right? I didn't say anything... anyone... I didn't say there was anyone... Oh, Jesus.
He brings his fingers up and pinches the bridge of his nose. Lily gives him a minute. And then...
No one gets this melancholic over something that doesn't have a heartbeat.
Might be true. Though, you've never seen the way Sirius looks at his leather jacket.
Lily smiles.
I can imagine.
James looks back out at the sky. Lily waits for him to answer her question, but when he speaks, that's not what happens.
You see those stars?
He points at a cluster just above her.
Yeah?
That's Ophiuchus. It's supposed to be a guy wrestling with a snake. I looked it up. I always look up the things anyway, apparently, he tried to warn the Trojans about the Trojan horse, so the gods sent a pair of sea serpents to punish him.
Lily looks from James to the stars.
Huh. Didn't realise you knew so much about Muggle myths.
I don't.
She waits for him to explain, but he doesn't. She keeps looking at the constellation, tilting her head to the side.
It kind of looks like a turtle.
Right? That's what I said, but he was all...
Lily looks over at him.
He? Sirius, you mean?
Because his whole family is named after stars, so if anyone's been teaching James Potter about the constellations, it makes sense that it would be him.
Sure.
But James almost immediately pulls a face.
Ugh, actually, no, definitely not. Too gross.
Gross?
Evans, what's with the questions, huh? I'm too drunk for questions.
Lily holds her hands up in surrender.
Hey, you're the one going on astronomy rants, not me.
Yeah, well, again.
He points at his face.
Drunk. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. You're supposed to be the responsible one here. Stop me.
Stop you? Stop you what? Talking?
Yes, please.
She sits there for a moment, traitorous eyes dropping to his mouth, which... No. Ew. What? She quickly looks away, reaching into her back pocket and pulling out her cigarettes. She's going to have to quit after this summer. It wasn't a habit before now, just something she did on hard days. But then, maybe there have been more hard days recently. She puts one between her fingers before offering the box to James. He looks skeptical.
Didn't peg you for a smoker, Evans.
So you do know what they are?
He looks up, affronted.
Of course I know what they are.
Lily shrugs.
It's hard to tell with wizards.
I'm mildly offended by that.
Good.
He looks back down at the pack.
You don't have to take one, you know.
She watches him hesitate.
Right.
He rubs the back of his neck.
Thing is, okay, I know what they are, I just don't quite know how they work.
Lily does her best to stifle a laugh.
Christ. And they think you're the bad one. Remus at least had some idea what he was doing.
James's eyes flash.
Have you been corrupting my Moony?
Your Moony?
She arches her brow, trying to ignore the bit of her stomach that flutters at the adorableness of that statement.
Did you think he belonged to someone else?
I wasn't aware he belonged to anyone.
Well.
He looks down and, with a little trepidation, pulls a cigarette out of the pack.
Now you know.
Right.
She bites down on a smile.
And Peter?
James nods.
Also mine.
I can't quite see the point in asking, but...
Yes, serious too. Honestly, Evans, I thought you were supposed to be clever. Keep up.
I guess I didn't realise you were quite so territorial.
Clearly you haven't been paying enough attention to me.
Clearly. Alright, put this...
She holds up her cigarette.
Between your lips. I'm going to light the end, and you're going to inhale, okay? Inhale and hold it, right in your chest.
James is looking at her like she's insane.
You're going to light it while it's in my mouth?
Yes.
Looking very concerned, he does as she asked.
Just know that if I burn my face, I will sue you.
What a posh threat.
She holds her fingers beneath his cigarette and snaps. It always gives her a bit of a thrill when that works. James's eyes widen slightly, but he inhales before he can speak and then immediately starts coughing.
Merlin's tits! Oh my god.
Lily is laughing so hard she can't light her own cigarette.
Oh, that's fucking awful.
Tears are spilling out of the corners of his eyes.
What the fuck, Evans? What the actual shite is this?
His free hand clutches at his chest as he doubles over.
It gets better. The first one is the hardest.
Gets better?
James wipes at his eyes with the back of his hand.
I should fucking hope so.
His face is bright red and wet, eyes all puffy, holding the cigarette away from his body like it's a bomb he's afraid is going to go off.
Just try again.
It'll be better this time. You promise?
He gives the cigarette a sidelong look.
Sure. Yeah. You have to breathe in deep, into your chest.
She points unhelpfully at her sternum.
Yeah, I fucking breathed in, Evans. That's the goddamn problem. Shit. Ugh.
James spits on the grass next to him.
Okay. Trying this once more. But I swear, if it's not better...
You'll sue me. I got it. Big deep breath. Hold it. Let it out.
Uh-huh.
He looks thoroughly unimpressed as he brings the cigarette back to his mouth and takes a tentative inhale.
Oh, fuck you.
He shoves the cigarette at her. Lily slips the unlit one behind her ear and takes James's.
Evans, you dirty fucking liar.
He has his hands on his knees, bracing himself as he tries to breathe through it.
I can't believe you're so bad at this.
Oh, literally, how can you be good at it? It's like breathing fire into your lungs.
He wipes his hand across his face, finally able to sit up straight again. Lily smiles as she brings the cigarette to her mouth and inhales, then tilts her head back and blows rings up into the sky.
What the hell?
James jabs an accusing finger at her.
It's a spell. It has to be.
But she shakes her head, still grinning.
Nope. This is all Muggle, my friend.
He shakes his head, running a hand through the mess of hair on his head.
How?
Practice.
Why would you practice if it always feels like shit the first time?
Lily shrugs.
Looks cool, I guess.
Oh, fuck off. You sound like serious. Do not, I repeat, under any circumstances, show him these hell sticks.
Hell sticks?
I'll never know peace again.
He goes on, ignoring her.
He'll start smoking them all the bloody time.
I mean, they certainly do match his look.
James fixes her with a pointed stare.
Lily.
Oh, okay. I won't. Cross my heart.
She makes the motion with her hand. He shakes his head again, collapsing back down onto the grass.
I never would have thought you'd be the one to do it for the aesthetic, Evans.
I'm not, she almost says. But honestly, she doesn't feel like having the dead dad conversation right now.
Well, I've got to put in a little more effort now that I don't have someone following me around proposing to me every 5 minutes.
Ah, first of all, I never proposed.
Pretty sure you did. 3rd year, middle of magical creatures.
That was a joke.
Sure it was.
She's glad it's so dark. Glad he can't see the blush that is, for some reason, making its way to the tops of her cheeks.
Besides, I was never interested in your looks anyway.
You really know how to make a girl feel special, Potter.
What?
And then she sees his eyes go wide.
Oh, come on, that's not what I meant. You know that's not what I meant.
She looks at him, brow raised.
Do I?
James rolls his eyes before propping himself up on his elbows.
You're beautiful. You know you're beautiful.
The blush starts to burn, but Lily can't seem to break eye contact with him.
But there are a lot of beautiful girls. Most girls, honestly.
He shoots her a sheepish grin.
I liked you because the first day we met, you put me in my place.
He runs a hand over his face.
You're a fucking force, Lily Evans, and you always have been. Trying to get your attention was like chasing after a storm. Terrifying and exhilarating and unbelievable every time.
It's only when he stops that Lily realises she's been holding her breath. Unsure what to do with herself, she starts giving the cigarette in her hand a bit too much attention.
Well, when you put it like that.
I'm sorry, I'm drunk. I'm not sure I'm explaining this right.
Lily quickly shakes her head.
No, you are. Thank you.
James's face scrunches.
Thank you.
But all she can do is shrug. They lapse into silence again, Lily trying very hard to focus on the grass in front of her, fingers nervously flicking at the cigarette in her hand, while James looks up at the sky.
I'm glad that we're friends now. I think it's better this way, don't you?
Something in the pit of her stomach violently disagrees, but she holds it down, smothering it.
Yeah. Better as friends.
How did